Right. I mean, you can dive into the movie deeper than me, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But that's just what I seen, man. I really loved how it showed that Tom really, to me, this is what I got from it, honestly, because I seen it once in the movie theater, never watched it a second time. Um, to me, it showed that there was no such thing as Tom. Like everything was within frames. Like he was able to travel back. I want to say like through her window or something like that. But
Yeah.
everything
No,
was.
it was through a bookshelf where he
Oh
was.
yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know it. You didn't know at the beginning of the movie, but his daughter's like 5 or no, she's like 8 or 9 years old, and she says, "Daddy, I got a ghost. There's a ghost in in my because it keeps dropping books and stuff like that."
Right. Now,
And
okay, I
then
remember that part. Yeah.
it comes full circle at the end, and you realize that it was Matthew McConaughey the whole time, like talking to her through a black hole, through like a wormhole of time.
Right. And it showed that there's no such thing as like a future or past. Everything exists at once.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I'll be able to go to a deeper conversation, but I honestly remember the strongest thing that I took from that movie when I left that it was showing that love was an actual force. Like
okay,
everything to him was getting back to be able to speak with his daughter.
yeah.
But
And he was,
go ahead.
it's crazy because like he was communicating with her from the future, while he was in the present, and he was trying to get her to prevent him from going because he regretted spending well not he didn't regret it in the long haul. He was thankful for it, but at that moment in time when he was in the black hole, he didn't know what was going to happen. So he was trying to communicate with his daughter to not to like stop him from going. Um, and that he was talking in Morse code via the what you call it the sand. So it's crazy. There was or dust. There was dust in her room, and he was communicating via the dust grain on the ground.
It's
Um,
crazy.
in Morse code, and he was because there was no other way of doing it because of the time. There was time dilation. Like he couldn't just pop up out of the bookshelf and like be like, "Hey,
Right.
hey, yeah, grandfather paradox, I guess, and all that stuff." So it's kind of respectful of the limitations of time as we understand them from a physics sense. But still, yeah, it bends a lot of rules of time as well at the same time. So I really liked it. But when it comes to the love aspect, yeah, I'm there with you, man. I think it's pretty deep. I think every character in that movie loves something tremendously, and we see all of the variables of love from a human perspective. Like even Anne Hathaway's character, she's in love with Matt Damon, or I think it's
Macaw.
Matt Damon. Yeah, yeah, she's in love with the Matt Damon character, and they fly all the way out there to save him, and he ends up being an asshole. And they start doing, or is it Matt Damon? Yeah, it is Matt Damon, right?
The main character
The guy.
or the
No, the guy named no, that's Matthew
I
McConaughey.
want to say it is
They
Matt
fly
Damon.
out.
I,
Yeah, they fly out to rescue a dude who's been on a planet for a long time. Remember, they have a decision to make, and Anne Hathaway like forces them to make the wrong decision because she's in love with the guy that they're going to rescue.
right.
He, yeah, Matt, I gotta watch it again too. I've seen it 2 or 3 times, but that's like a subplot. And so Anne Hathaway is like in love with this dude who's been stranded on a planet from another mission, and she convinces Matthew McConaughey to go rescue him when they only have time to like go to one more planet.
Right,
Or
because wasn't it two main planets that was Earth-like, the Goldilocks
yeah,
planets,
yeah.
and the one he was he on the one with like the fucking tidal waves, like fucking mountain high?
I don't think Matt Damon was on that one.
Okay, because I remember him going to a
But
but
they lose a lot of
Yeah, but that's all. That's all part of the movie stuff. Like, but like, I don't know, like something like I don't. It couldn't get out of my head because I even had a discussion with my little mentee at the time. You know, I was mentoring and shit. You know, and she didn't believe love was a force. She's like, oh, that's all bullshit. Nah, I just kept gravitating towards love was the message in that movie for some reason, man. I broke it down to her, you know, like the things that you would do for love, and it's not like a man. I'm gonna go out and buy me a Rolex or a Mercedes, you know, for fun. You know, love is something that's so ingrained into a human, not just humans, like nature in general. Like if there's a cat who has a dog who has puppies, they love those. There's connection with that puppy. If you try to touch one of those puppies, they'll fucking try to rip your head off. But if you just try to touch someone else's, they wouldn't give a fuck. And they have a lower conscience than humans, but still love is ingrained into them, from my perspective.
No, 100%. And it makes you really think. Like, if we observe love in the lower species, then there's two deductions that can be made from that. It's one option or the other. Either we're the highest level of consciousness because we can't like look up to the sky and observe another
Right, a higher love.
uh,
Got you.
a higher love than what we experience. So either we're the highest level of consciousness that there is attainable in the entirety of the universe, or there's a different higher love that we have yet to come to understand and realize. And there's other species, of course, that have different understandings of it. I lean towards that, but it's weird. It's also like it's like a melting pot when it comes to love for me because I look around and I see what some people think love is, and I can see how like they're on the same level of like the puppy, the dog. You know,
Okay.
like a dog will go around and like a dog doesn't care if it fucks three or four other dogs after it has a litter of puppies.
Right.
Like it's not that kind of love. There's no connection to the mate necessarily, like a physical connection to where like cheating or infidelity or feeling guilty or remorse is there. But when it comes to their offspring, they're very similar to human beings. So there are certain aspects that bleed in across every species, but then there are things that are unique to the human being as well. So there's like
Okay.
love and love that we sort of diagnose.
I have a question on that because this is something I came across. I want to say one of those fucking football players. I don't watch football. Probably like he had a weird fucking hairdo, like Cam Newton. Oh, who the fuck this guy? Whatever he's just. He's
Probably Odell Beckham.
I don't fucking know. He had like fucking like these weird dreads out of his top hat, some shit, you know. And he was breaking down, which I didn't watch the whole interview, but I understood where he was coming from, because you explained the dog was able to mate with multiple different. But okay, I see where you're coming from because I see the flaw in my logic. Is
I don't think the dog is in love or understands love as deeply on the like one-on-one level as a human being can. Like we have a unique opportunity because of our understanding, our consciousness, to experience a higher level of love with like one other individual when it comes to like the romantic connection. But then the other laws of love, like the ones we experience with our parents, the ones we experience with
right.
our children,
There's levels to it.
those are cross species. Like you can see that in birds. You can see it in ducks when they feed like their young, or you can see it in fish. You can see it in puppies and cats. You can see that. So there are commonalities.
But okay, so with your dog example, no, I understand where you're coming from. With your dog example, as we from a human perspective, we can't get inside of a dog's mind, but there is guys who mate with multiple women without being in love with one of them.
Right. And guess what women call them?
Dogs, I get that. I'm just I'm just elaborating on the thought. I think it's possible. I really do, honestly. Like I really love my wife. You know what I'm saying? I love females before, but I still do want to mate with other women. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
I don't. I don't.
I think that if I'm being honest, I think that is a primitive instinct. It's a natural instinct that you have from way back that has never turned off. Like it's just in order to extend
Right.
lives 10,000 years ago, you had to procreate. And again, I don't think the concept of love was on a level of higher consciousness when it comes to cavemen. Like, I don't think cavemen were walking around writing poems and letters of affection. And I don't think they cried, when they fell in love or something like that.
Right.
Or
But the
they cried on their wedding day when they had children. I don't think they'd experienced the experiences of the buildup that we experience from a human perspective like we do today.
right. But the thing is, it became so engraved into the human brain that it's stuck.
Yes. But there's nothing saying that what we experience as love today isn't doing the same thing. So like let's look at the higher concept of love today. Let's say somebody or some group of people actually have it as right as you can get it today. Like um, let's just say dedication to club sex. Like you can't even compartmentalize love like this. Let's keep it with romantic love. So
Okay.
let's say the purest form of romantic love is one-on-one, full dedication from one man to one woman and one woman to one man. Let's just hypothesize that creates magic, like a magical synthesis of energy. So you want to go the love is an energy route. Let's say that the strongest exertion of energy from love comes from the room. That's just a hypothesis because I'll be the one who, personally, I think it's like the love for your children and
I think
the
there's a
love for
purest form
their heart. Yeah. But just in the romantic realm, let's say that the strongest energy that you can create from romantic love comes from between one woman and one man. So that's to say, like, if there's a hierarchy, two gay dudes, they can love each other. Nothing saying they can't. Nothing saying they can't experience love. But the energy that they create will always be dampened. It'll be lessened than what the peak energy that can be created. So it's kind of like I do think there's a hierarchy to romantic love. If a man and a dog, it's like if you hear a story of bestiality, for example, and the guy is on Phil Donahue or some talk show saying, I fell in love with my
of. Right.
dog. I fell in love with his dog. You can look at him and you can say, I mean, I can see how this fucking weirdo can say that, but it's not comparable to the love you have for your wife. Or you put like you can be fair and you can be honest at the same time. So when it comes to romantic love, let's just hypothesize that a man and a woman produce the highest energy on this planet when it comes to romantic love. So back to the
Exactly. Literally.
So back, yeah. So back to love. I don't think that the limitation on love is ever set. I think it's completely exponential. And if that's what love has done in the past, let's just say like love doesn't exist in the caveman era, but after cavemen have 5 kids and fuck 10 different women, they start to develop in their hearts that start caring primitively for those children and for those women, like a dog would. Like
Right.
if a saber-toothed lion tried to attack a caveman 10-year-old, the caveman would probably react. And you have to ask yourself, like, why would a caveman react? Like, what is telling him that he needs to defend this being that popped out of a hole in a woman who like satisfied a pleasure for him by sticking something that he had. And so all these things are undefined at that moment in time. So
But
like
do you see it as
what
um
causes that? Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but do you see it as almost that situation in a caveman that it's conditional and not unconditional love? Well, I'll say it's conditional is because on the condition of if the saber tooth tiger eats my daughter, then my genes won't be passed on.
Yeah, but how does he know that? Because knowledge has to factor in completely. Like he was, the way I see it, man, is history gamut of the scientific method over and over and over and over and over again. Like there must have been so many children that were just mauled by animals and wild animals. And the caveman era, they must have just been watching it happen because there's nothing. It's like arguing where did survival instinct originate from? Like, was it something that was innately there from the start, from the first human? I don't know, man. It's so hard to see that. Like the first caveman who was in a confrontation with a species that could wipe him out or kill him, like a bear or a
Right.
lion or anything. Like where would the nervous the nervous system reaction, where would it come from? Fight or flight is a learned thing. Like we've been taught that throughout history that fight or flight is like a learned thing, and that it becomes ingrained in our nervous system to fight or flight. Like if something is threatening you, you either fight or you flight.
Right.
But you have to, but that's because you register things as threats. Like we know that an animal it's mind bending to me because this is where I get lost in historical conversations because it's the chicken and the egg conversation, but it's with human emotions. So to go back to love in general, like I wanna I always think that love is a natural force and that it comes from a higher place.
Okay. Okay. Speaking on this situation right here,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I don't think we ever dived into this. But I don't know your thought process. Or maybe you told me before. I apologize if I don't remember. But I think that it wasn't just from a human standpoint. I believe that throughout evolution, if you believe in evolution, that they had a fight or flight love when we were becoming human, and that was stuck inside of the human brain even when we made it to this form.
Elaborate.
Okay, so you're saying like when we were humans, like I said, I don't know what your thoughts on evolution. When you believe that God created Adam and Eve and then pow, we're humans that came here, or you believe that we came from. My thoughts is on my belief is that we came from a form of fish, and then we evolved into like a toad type thing that was amphibious, and then we evolved to a land animal. But I believe that within all those formations that we took throughout evolution, it was built into it. So when we became human, it wasn't that it was brand new. It was something that we derived from when we were originally evolving.
Interesting.
Yeah, because let's say like we were fish, right? And then another fish. You get where I'm coming from?
Oh, 100%. But that's so interesting because you've seen the movie Waterworld, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Costa.
So Kevin Costner is a human being who has gills because the environment is like 95% water now. Like
Right.
95% of the world is water. So how would you explain your hypothesis on evolution? Which is, I
In
mean,
in that
it sounds
situation,
plausible. It sounds plausible, but like, how would if there's still a bunch of water and we evolved from fish, did we just decide to like poke our heads out and like crawl on the land, or like in the form of alligators or something?
well,
I'm trying to visualize the progression, like, on the charts where they show evolution from the apes and stuff like that. Like, go backwards, and what does it look like? Like, where do we come from, like, before the apes?
so I can show you. I mean, I have a whole diagram because I read Richard Dawson's book or whatever that showed that if you go back through your genealogy, that um, we didn't look. Your great grandfather times, like say like 1 million, did not look like you. Like it will be like a let's say like a fly that only lives for like 12 days, right? When a fly sees a human being, like an adult, they're like, okay, this is its form, This is all we know, because all we know is the human form. We can't go back to evolution. But if you was to show that fly a picture of a baby and be like, this is what this adult looked like, or you show the embryo inside of a belly, that's swimming around. You're like, this is what an adult look. You'd be like, fuck no. How can that become this?
Right.
Because at one point you were I mean, not 100%, but you were like a sperm cell swimming to your mother's egg.
Yeah.
Like if you show a fly that, they'll be like, nowhere in the fuck you came from this sperm cell to this fully functioning human being. You get what I'm saying?
So let me compliment your theory on evolution. A bit of a mind blowing possibility. So, what if we are recreating in a lifetime and beyond? Let's just say death, and what happens after death as well, because I believe in different things after death occurring. But what if we recreate the entirety of time within a lifetime?
Okay.
Meaning, what if we recreate evolution in the conscious understanding of what we know a lifetime to be right now? So from the embryonic stage, or actually before, I'm sorry, from the sperm stage to the uh, crustaceous, I guess is a funny joke. From the sperm stage to like the old ass man on his deathbed stage.
Right.
What if that's what if that's everything that evolution has been so far?
Okay. I mean, I can see that point because you're trying. I believe what I believe. No, I see your point. What I'm saying is, I believe that evolution from a fish form to a human form took billions of years. But I think
Right.
that it became
That would take 9 months.
exactly. I believe that the process was just sped up quickly. Be,
Yeah.
wait, I want to go back to a point that I was trying to point out earlier. But we could jump back to this. When you said Kevin Costner evolved into a person with gills, right?
Yep.
So let's say everyone had gills, and then everyone has this love or this fight or flight thing, whatever, like that. And then a bunch of people with gills are like, well, where did this come from? But then you eventually go back into when we were just humans, which is our present form. You would be like, well, when I was human, I had fight or flight. When I was human, I had love. When I was human, I had all these feelings. It's just I evolved into something more. So when I see a human having these thoughts, I believe that it was built from a part of evolution that was already ingrained into them. It wasn't like we came into human and then became conscious of these things. We were already conscious of these things.
Of course. And now you're bringing it all back, which I love doing via and
Right.
what it's all be. And understanding it is the key component. Like, I don't think you can do anything about it and actually improve on it and put forth an effort to like make it work in your favor unless you understand it. And that's why you see so many folks that it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work. So a lot of people just, they fall back and they say, I'm good, man. I'll eat Doritos and fast food, and I'll have 2 or 3 kids and work a job for 60 years, and I'll leave the other stuff
The smart
to
people, quote unquote.
exactly. And so that's why, if you look at our conversations over the last 3 or 4 years, it's very interesting. I think you and I both started. Um, Nobody would be able to confirm this, but I think I can say safely that you and I both started a little bit more hostily towards like the masses, like the people out there. Like it wasn't resentful, but there was a little bit of a like disconnect. Like I didn't want anything to do with like the crowds and the way of thinking. I still don't, but I understand them a little bit more. I can empathize with their condition a little bit more, man, because if you, it's almost like Kevin Costner had the gills, and he was a human being, so he could swim underwater because he can swim underwater and he can walk on land. He could do it all, but all the people that didn't have gills, he couldn't grow them gills. He couldn't. The whole world was evolving in 95% water, and he was one of the like 3 people, or I think he had a kid and a wife maybe, or at one point, and they had gills too. So he was like such a small percentile of people who had evolved in accordance with what was necessary to survive, because the world was continuously becoming like this more and more inundated with water. And essentially all these other people had a very hard time surviving, which is why you had the Dennis Hopper character who's like a pirate essentially going from place to place looting and built his city on that. And his flotilla was like the old west essentially, this one place where he had established a monopoly and he was like the king and he ran that place. So when he's threatened by somebody who's evolved, he kind of, well, anyway, that's a deep dive on Water World. I gotta watch that shit again though. But I guess what I'm saying is like intellectuals who think on a higher level of consciousness, it's almost their responsibility not to turn into a bad guy or a bad girl or a bad person,
Right, right.
because if they do, it can be very oppressive, um, and it can seem very antagonistic towards people who, man, it's so hard to put yourself in other people's shoes. I don't know, man. I don't know if people are trying and they just give up. I don't know what's going on in their life to say like that.
It's too many variables, man. You try to wrap your head about it. When you try to wrap your head around it, it just gets more and more frustrating.
Absolutely, because the key, it's simple at the end of the day. It's for me, it's all about freedom. It's all about like being able to choose what you do with your day, and you'll see people state that they have complete freedom, and all that means to them is like what they're gonna buy at the grocery store, and what movie they're gonna watch on Netflix, and where they're gonna go to get gas, or where they're gonna go on the weekend.
Right.
The limitations, yeah, the limitations on freedom, it's like they almost don't see them. But to somebody who's removed from that world for the most part, I see like I almost see a misrepresentation of freedom, and honestly, I see a misrepresentation of love a lot of the time too. And while it's bothersome, I used to antagonize it, and I used to be like wholehearted against it. And I found out that the most rebellious thing I can do to that is just do my own thing,
Yeah.
and
Well,
just do it on my own. And
to touch on that topic is one of the things that I hold within the analogy that I come up with the human brain is that I believe the human brain is like a rocket ship that can go to Mars, go to Venus, it can go interstellar, like the fucking movie. But people choose to drive that bitch to Walmart and drive it back home, or drive it to pick up the mail. You know what I'm saying? Like, why? Why are you, like you said, a limitation? Is a limitation on self. And the thing about it is, it's like it's almost a necessary evil to see somebody take a rocket ship to Walmart and come home and be content with that because it gauges how far ahead you are of them.
Yeah.
Because if everybody took their shit interstellar, you wouldn't really know, am I really a deep thinker? Yeah, you don't have a spectrum. So you need, it's bad. It's, like I say, a necessary evil. You need these type of people to gauge yourself or where you stand at in society on intelligence.
Yeah, I've been reading a couple of I guess 18th century philosophy books, and one of them is from Immanuel Kant. Have you
I
ever
like them,
read
yeah.
any of his stuff? All right, so he broke evil down to a little bit like I've always felt this way about the word itself. Like evil to me is not like I don't go directly to like the devil and
Right.
devil worshiping and all that weird stuff. I go to kind of what he does. I go to a hierarchy of things that you could do. Like, and honestly, evil at its baseline to me, evil is giving up your freedom to choose, and to like relegate your 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 choice in life to something other than your conscious state. Now, that would sound weird to somebody if you say, like, how'd you spend your day today? I woke up, I ate a bowl of cereal, honeycomb, because I really like honeycomb, and then I went to work, and I really don't like my job, but it pays the bills, and so I do it because I got a family, and I really hate my job though, and I got prescription medication because of my job. I'm stressed, but I gotta do it because family. And then I came home and we watched some television. We watched whatever Netflix recommended to us. I put some microwave dinners in the refrigerator, and that whole time, it's like it sounds weird, but in my mind, I'm like, this is okay. It's not evil, but it is like in the evil family tree, because in the family tree of evil, to me, is like Kant has said. Um, there's like passiveness is a state of evil or a state of negative, um, like discharge to where you're not doing something. Like if you have a better alternative, Kant was big on like reason and making moral choices and morality and all that. If you forego the moral choice and what you know is right consciously to do, and you choose a different option, then you're participating to like evil, or in the realms of evil or negative
Yeah.
discharge or
I,
negative influence.
I can get where you're coming from on that situation because if I was to use the word evil in that situation, I believe evil is when you allow others to dictate your day. Like you said, Netflix recommended this to me. You said that I need this job. Even though you're. What's crazy is less than an hour ago, or let's say like 2 hours ago after I left the gym, um, I don't know why the fuck I stopped by nasty ass fucking Burger King because I was just fucking hungry at the moment, you know? And the lady was,
Why? Because you saw the sign by the door.
and I smelled the frame broiled, you know. So but the lady, she looked about like 45, very heavy set. She had an arms folded. She was leaning out the window. I swear to you, you just said this, but I just experienced this. She looked at me. She said that she says, how are you doing today? I said, good. I said, how are you? You know, small talk bullshit. She says, I am doing fucking horrible because I am forced to be here. And inside of my head, I'm thinking, like to me, that is evil. Like you are not forced to be there. There's other, like I said,
You have a choice.
yes, like your brain is a fucking rocket ship and you're using it to make burgers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And so, give me one second. So, if you reel the spool back a little bit on that, like, let's look at it as like a decision tree. Like, visualize a decision tree. The result of her saying that has, or I'm sorry, the effect of her saying, I'm doing terrible because
I am
I'm being
forced.
forced to be here.
I hated that word forced.
One step backwards. Even if you go multiple steps backwards, what it all comes down to is choice, and it also comes down to consciousness and intelligence. So she may feel as if she's forced to be there because she literally does not have scope of knowledge to. So she may not know. She just may not know in her head that Target down the street is hiring for $15 an hour.
Right.
Now, I mentioned this on the podcast like a week ago with my homeboy. I'm like, it's bothersome to me how can anybody work for minimum wage when there are big places that don't require any, college education.
No skills.
No skills at all. They'll hire you off the streets for $12 to $15 an hour. So why
Right.
would anybody make the choice to work for less?
And do more work.
And it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so, like...
And then the crazy part about that is this is post-COVID where people figured out how to make money from home. There's infinite information on the internet showing you how. Bro, Google are paying people to give their opinion.
Yeah, reviews.
Review. That is fucking nuts. It's like I can see, okay, let's like 2019, before post-COVID, people were feeling they were forced to be at a job.
Right.
And even though you had the internet, I'm not going to say that they were totally innocent, you know what I'm saying? Because I was at a fucking job, But post-COVID, you had time to reflect and find a way to make money without a bullshit. How the fuck you just be like, man, I'm going to go to an interview at Burger King.
You're explaining ultimately why I got a divorce and why I was happy with it. Like, I was okay with it because my wife has no initiative to explore her potential, or my ex-wife, and I saw a lot of potential in her. And essentially, every argument we got in for the first 2 years of our marriage was about potential and realizing potential. We would always get into heated arguments about how she wouldn't take my advice, and I kind of felt like a big part of marriage was taking each other's advice on things or learning from each other and
Exactly.
taking risks and suggesting things to each other to improve the life that we have together. And she would just repel everything that I recommended her way, and so I think I manifested the divorce because after our arguments, I'd always walk out of the house and I was upset, and I'd be like, man, this shit just ain't gonna work. This to myself.
Right.
I'd walk out and take the trash and be like, man, I want to be out of here, bro. Like, I love my daughter, but I just want to be out of here. And that would be the energy that I would carry when it came to her for about a year or two, and then all of a sudden she just came to me and she's like, let's get a divorce. And I'm like, okay. I was shook for like 2 hours, bro. No lie, like 2 or 3 hours of emotional, can we work on this? Let's go. And then I sat and I thought about it to myself, and I'm like, this is exactly what you want. So, go do it.
Right. It's almost like she was on the same frequency of you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big. I mean, of course, it's gonna hit you regardless. You know what I'm saying? But
because of the variables, like my daughter.
Right. It's bigger than just you.
As soon as my wife said, let's get a divorce, I Doctor Stranged every potential. I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm like, what if she moves out of state? What if I lose custody? All these things. So that's where the emotion.
Right.
But after I calmed down from that initial 2-3 hour window, it becomes okay. What do we do next? And if you treat it as amicable adults, which took some time. I mean, we're still living under the same roof for another month until our lease is up here, and then she's gonna go somewhere else. But if you treat it respectfully,
it's it's a lot easier than the horror stories that I've heard.
Right. I mean, you have a more of a logical brain, though. Like people react just straight off emotions, but you reacted off emotions, but eventually brought it. You were able to quantify it and
And
act off logic. A lot of people, and it is mind blowing to us that people can't just think of something logically, but some people just fuck. I can't say they can't. They don't want to. It's too
and
much
speaking
work.
of can't is it's so ironic. You should be a rapper because
Double entendre would
Kant
come.
Kant was all about logic. He was all about reason. He was all about like making when you make a choice, there's a reasonable choice, and that should be the only one that you make at the end of the day. If you have a reasonable choice and you choose anything other than that, like what are you really doing? So
Right.
I mean, it's crazy, man. I'm gonna have to send you a link to a book I'm reading about Kant. It's really good. It's called Choosing Freedom. It's phenomenal, really dope.
Okay.
It just came out. It came out like a month or two ago, and yeah, it's crazy good. I'm only on the third chapter, but it's fire, bro. Fire.
Oh, I'll definitely check. Man, I tried diving into
Course of Miracles.
Oh, they just use the word God too much for me, man.
Oh, I know.
Fuck.
That's hey, the thing, the actual book. Did you listen to the audiobook?
No, I just started reading like the I did the sample first, to get like the first chapters and see, and like every third word was God, the devil.
So if you read the audiobook, like there's a preface, or if you listen to the audiobook, there's a preface to it, and it talks about how the book came around, like in the 1970s, and how it was from a couple of atheists who, like, literally had no spiritual background at all, but they were working together, and they were working this trash job that they were just getting so sick and tired of. And one day they just looked at each other and they had this like 2 hour monologue or back and forth discussion about the state of their existence and everything that was going on. And they resolved that they should work on a project, like writing a book together about what they were going through and what led to this and what they experienced and how they could possibly, maybe it would help them like come out of the rut. And then for the next 6 to 7 months, they experienced, in their words, this could all be bullshit, but when you listen, when you make it through the book and the detail, it's really what it talks about is anybody who has ever had a transformation from not believing in God to believing in God, and I feel like I've been there. I don't, I can't really pinpoint a time in my life when I didn't believe in God, but clearly there were moments where I wasn't living like I was believing in God. So it's kind of like I wasn't going by the Kant style of approach. I wasn't making decisions with reason. I wasn't making decisions with my better future in mind or anything like that. And that's kind of what I feel like God kind of is sort of alignment with your best self, with your highest self. You hear the cliches, living my best life or blah
Right.
blah blah, all that stuff. But like I believe there's an actual science to it, and that the better decisions you make, the purer the decisions you make, the more reasonable decisions you make, and the better choices you make, the closer you get in alignment with the laws of the universe. And that would prove God in itself, because if there is a God, then God is the creator of the universe, quote unquote. So if you get in alignment with the laws of the creator of the universe, then you would start living in alignment with what hypothesis, quote unquote, God would be like have created for us to live. So then you'd be able to see, you'd be able to put it to the test. You'd be able to see, like, okay, if I'm living in alignment with the laws of the universe and God created them, then what sort of stuff can I do? Like, what can I do with the trickle down effect and the, I don't want to use the word power, ability of living in accordance with the laws of the universe? So, anyways, this book basically, if you've gone through a transformation like that, it it resonates, man. It hits, and yeah, it uses the word God a lot, but man, if you just substitute Christ or God with universe every time they say it, the book still hits. Like it's
Okay, I could try that because I believe that like, I don't believe we need a God if the universe in itself was organic.
mm,
That's just me. I'm solely like I would never go against, huh?
explain organic though. You mean like just strictly Big Bang?
Yeah. I would never discourage because my thing about it is you're very logical and you have your own thought process and you still believe in God, which I love. But there's a lot of people who's not very logical, and if you tell them certain things,
1000%, bro.
they will switch their mind. And the thing about it is, I really love the thought of Christianity because the thing about it is, when somebody going through a fucked up situation, I've been through fucked up situations out of my life, and I thought to myself, I need to get myself out of this. But there's some people who feel they need a higher power, and if they speak to a God, that they will help them get out of this, and that's much needed, man. Like so, I never discourage somebody from Christianity, bro. I'm not them atheists who, oh, you're an idiot for believing in a cloud God.
You know what confirmed my faith in God? In my definition of God or the universe. What confirmed my faith in that there's higher intelligence that has an impact on my existence, I'll just say it that way, is that I was observant of, when I'm making my unconscious decisions to be like a churchgoer every week or read the Bible day in, day out, or go about it in that systematic sort of approach. So, in order to make a decision on whether or not I was going to do that, I had to observe, like I do everything else. I always observe the people that are part of something to see if it's something that I'm interested in participating in. So that's kind of why I'm isolated as fuck and why I do my own thing. It's because just everything, unless it's ping pong or video games here and there or board gaming, like I see the result of the people that are involved in it, and I'm not crazy about it very much. So the same thing with religion and Christianity. I looked at the people that were participating in it, and I saw, the result of what they brought into the world with it. There's good stuff. There's the sense of community and all that, but
Right.
there's also the sense of superiority. There's also the sense of, dictating and preaching the way things are to people. And I know it's unavoidable sometimes. Sometimes I do come off like that on the podcast and stuff like that. So I've been working on it as much as I can. But what confirmed my faith in God, to go back to that long-winded answer, is that after observing people's reasoning for why they believed in God, who were part of like the Christian faith, my natural reasoning was different than theirs. Mine is a little bit retroactive. So I'm an experienced guy first. Like I live life and I study my life and I study the experience. And then I like to read as well. And about 10, 12 years ago, I read a book called Drops Like Stars. And this was after a very serious situation in my life with like altercations with the police, altercations with drug use, stuff like that. Just a dark part in my life. And after I read that book, as I'm reading it, there's certain pages, there's certain stories that are very anecdotal to the experience that I had just come out of. Not what I was going through, what I had just come out of. And since then, I don't know if I've conditioned myself to this, but a lot of the material that I read is, whether it's from old books, current books, or books that have yet to come out,
Right.
they kind of talk to me to confirm whether or not what I just went through in the stage of my life was a learning experience and what I learned from it and what I should learn from it. So I seek education, I seek learning, I seek improvement all the time. And what I found has made its way to me via the inside I always felt like I was a good person, and I tell my wife or my ex-wife all the time in our arguments, I'm like, honestly, um, I've tried to do my best here, and I've never I've never hurt you physically. I've never hurt you emotionally, and obviously she disagrees with that. But I've never felt in my heart that I did anything that warranted the reactions that she had. I always felt like I was trying to work on a relationship. And then after I come out of that divorce, I start reading some books that they just kind of tell me the same thing. They reassure me that I am going about it well, and I am going about it okay. And from what I've heard of like the people that are deep in religion and believe in God deeply, is that they say God talks to them, and God consoles them on a daily basis. Now,
See that
I can subscribe to that, but I need more science. My mom is a scientist, and she also believes in God, so I kind of have a little bit of that from her, to where it's like if I can back up my like the evidence that I need to believe something and to actually like your brain works the same way. You need a lot of facts.
right.
And you need a lot of details in order for you to believe something is true and for it to register with your head. And like actually, you don't want to misinform people. You don't
I
want to
hate
be
that.
disingenuine. You don't want to do any of those things. I don't either. So we're talking about the biggest thing of all. Like when you're talking about believe in God. So I don't talk to anybody about my spirituality at all. Like
All
some
right.
of the
Personal
some of the
journey.
yeah, some of the closest people I know, my wife, for example, my ex-wife, we hardly got into these conversations, period, about spirituality, because I know where she stood on it. So I knew that it would take a hell of a lot of evidence for her to believe anything of what I was saying was true. And for what it's worth, I didn't need her to. Um, but it's interesting when we get into these conversations. I, I don't I don't want to change your mind. I don't want
Exactly.
you to. I don't. But I know for a fact that I gotta stand my ground with you because
It's your belief.
because you come from a hard evidence like perspective as well. But the crazy thing is, so do I. But we have varying beliefs, and so I there is a lot of evidence in your direction to support your beliefs. But I want to at least showcase to you that there's a lot of evidence in my direction too. So that's all.
Yeah, I get one of my biggest things. Well, I didn't have this knowledge. Let's say like 3 years ago. But one of my thing was that even drove me further towards mine, and there's something like your experiences that drove me further towards your direction. But this one drove me towards my direction. My thing is, there's like when people take, and I really can't use this example as base evidence, but it sort of blends in. So my thing is when people take like on like an ayahuasca or like take mushrooms, they never have a talk with God or maybe God, whatever. They have like a universe, like they become intertwined within nature.
Yeah.
But
Alignment though. That's like alignment.
yeah, but I would think that like if you're totally unconscious of yourself and then you're totally letting go, I believe that's a chance for God to physically show himself within your trip. But he doesn't.
Hey, bruh, don't you have? Isn't that a very like narrow?
No, it's very narrow. I'm not basing my whole belief off that one thing. But I'm saying this is like like you said, like you went through an experience and then it drove you closer to your belief. Like
Yes.
they went through that experience and that was only like another little tipping point. I'm not gonna say 50%,
How do you know
40%.
what their beliefs are though? Like, can they confirm their beliefs, I'm not calling them like druggies or anything like that. I know a lot of smart people that have messed with mushrooms and ayahuasca. Jordan Peterson, one for example. Um, but like, won't you? You've heard the bad trip like syndrome, right?
All right, your mindset before you take it.
Bad place. Don't take mushrooms.
Right.
It's a terrible trip. So, I mean, all those people could have been in great places, but you can't go into an experience and say, I want to meet God, I want to talk to God, I want to talk to God, I want to talk to God. Let me take this mushroom. And then have it happen. Like, you almost, it's hard to say. Um,
I think that if there was a God, he would be more ubiquitous. So like he would show up in your dreams. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. You want. All right. So, the golden age of communication is what I mentioned to you earlier, right?
Right.
What if part of why I feel that way is because I feel like whatever mode of communication I use and whatever personality type I'm engaging with, whether it's an atheist, whether it's a full-on Christian, a Muslim, a child, an old person, whatever. There's always there's a baseline of communication that I can tap into. That's similar to like when I'm writing a song and there's multiple interpretations. Like because I've done that so much and I've written lyrics that I know there's multiple layers to, I kind of listen that way too now. So I'll listen to somebody who's not a rapper, who doesn't have the ability to like know that they're speaking in a variation of like modes of communication, but I can't turn it off. So either I'm like tricking my mind into thinking that people are saying things with like all this variability to them, or they actually are. Now, me being me, I need proof. I need evidence that that's happening. So I spent 15 years studying it, and it does happen. Then I need proof that it matters, that there's something to it, and then it's not just useless hogwash. So I spent a little bit more time with that, and it gets kind of crazy. It depends on the subject material. It depends on the conversation. It depends on the amount of listening that you can do, and that's why I'm trying to work on that and listen more than I speak. But the intensity of the conversation, the intensity of the topic, and whether or not you're breaking new ground can really result in some weird sort of, in a good way, weird communication um, layers, like layers of communication to the point, and I'm not kidding or trying to be facetious when I say this, but I could I can hear I can hear my idea of what God is communicated through you um, at certain moments, like not when I need to. It's not because I want to. It's because it's like literally an unconscious sort of thing that happens. So this happens like with strangers too. I could walk into a post office and I can, you know, engage in a certain style of conversation. God, it makes it sound terrible, like I'm manipulating the environment, but I'm not. I'll just walk in and I'll have a very cordial conversation. Okay, let me be honest. It's rooted in love. It's rooted in the idea of love. If I come into a conversation with the idea that the other person I'm talking to is someone that like I genuinely get along with and I have a love for and I enjoy spending time with or communicating with, then if that feeling is reciprocated in the slightest, like God works his way into the conversation both ways. I just happen to like be able to hear it, and it's been that way for a little bit of time. And so I mean, I didn't learn this in church, bro. I don't go to church. I didn't pick this up from the Bible, so it's very difficult for me to disregard it. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying because well the thing is when before let's say like 2011 you say something let's say like I don't fucking know. Somebody's about to make some fucking airplanes. And I was like, oh, cool, cool, cool. But 2012, when I got into stocks, everything was in an investment mode. So when people would talk to me about anything, I would think of how can I invest and make money off of this. I don't know if that's what, like, your brain is almost wired into a mode to where you see something differently than others.
Oh no, I got you on that, but why would be my question? Because I understand how conditioning occurs. I understand how one can be conditioned. Um, I haven't read thousands or even dozens of religious books. I haven't been to church outside of like Christmas Mass for 15, 20 years. I don't have a group of religious friends. I don't subject myself to religious indoctrination via YouTube or anything like that. Like, the only thing that could be conditioning me would be the actual reality, or in my opinion, the existence of a higher presence. And so if I give into that notion, if I allow, like, if I submit to that notion without any, because I'm anti-conditioning, like, champion, bro. I can't stand seeing people. I can pinpoint people's conditioning, like, just through conversation. I can pinpoint, like, if somebody starts talking about their diet and stuff like that, I could be like, hey, you've seen a lot of commercials that tell you to go eat
Right.
carbs or something like that. Like, it's easy. But when I observe myself, like, I know the details of like my spirituality and my belief, and when I observe like where did these things come from, I don't see influence.
Okay, okay. But my thing
I
is,
don't see an influence from. I can't tell you where it came from. That's the issue.
I can understand that because I understand like an energy. You really can't pinpoint it, but you could feel it, you know? But my thing is, why would it have to be your this higher existence? Again, I'm not questioning you, just trying to understand where you're coming from.
Oh no, I get it.
My thing is, why would it have to be a Mary, Joseph, Jesus, God, Noah, all the
Yeah.
why can't it just be a higher existence versus have to be what was written inside of the Bible?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To me the Bible is like it's back to that analogy of the soil being love, and that the trees that come out of it are, variable, and a bunch of different trees, like in a bunch of different orchards, a bunch of different fruit. Like, the soil is the creator of, like, without the soil, you don't have any of the variability. And to me, the Bible, the Christian faith, Jesus himself, the life of Jesus, it's all, those are orchards. Those are trees. Those are different orchards. Islam is an orchard. Atheism is an orchard for what it's worth. Because
Okay.
without the concept of God, there is no atheism at all. I mean,
So
you could say it the other way around too. It's chicken and egg again, but there's soil there, so it
right.
has to be. Otherwise, there's none of this variability. There's none of this quote unquote interpretation. All of this is interpretation. People's interpretation of a story, perhaps, or of a myth, whichever way you want to interpret it.
Okay, okay. So, all right. So let's say, so what I'm getting from it is, Christianity, Muslim, let's say like Buddhism, is all letters. You need
Science,
letters to make words. Without letters, you have
yes,
no words.
right?
So my thing is, so it doesn't. Not saying this is what you think, because I think like let's say like now, let's say somebody was to bullshit right now and be like, Harry Potter is Jesus, you know, because a lot of things from Harry Potter can be related to the Bible, you know.
Yeah.
So my thing is, let's say like Harry Potterism becomes a religion in like let's say
You
200.
don't think it has?
Oh, I know, I believe it has. But I'm talking about like it replaced
Like cult
Christianity.
worship, yeah. It's just our yeah. It's cult worship, or Marvel movies. It's all the same. Um, this is why I love that movie Multiplicity. I don't mean to cut you off. If you have anything to add to what you were just gonna say, please continue.
No, I was just trying to see. So, what I'm getting from you is, even if somebody believes in Harry Potter as a religion in 2225, that it doesn't matter where it came from. They just needed the soil. Are you saying?
Yeah, because that Harry Potterism is isn't okay. I bring this movie up a lot. Multiplicity, right?
Right.
Michael Keaton, where the ten he has
They're a lesser version of the original.
himself. Yeah, but Michael Keaton himself still exists. Like the reality is that he exists, and without his DNA, without his chromosomes, like none of these variables occur. I believe the same thing occurs with belief systems, for that matter. So Harry Potterism is substitutable with Marvelism. It's substitutable. There's some people who worship Thor specifically in the comics, but then
But they literally worship Thor in the Norse.
Thor way back in the day.
Right.
Exactly. So where did the comics even come from? Is from the myth that Thor was, a Norse god who god of thunder, and now we've turned him into a comic book character, and now people worship the comic book. So we're on like the third or fourth iteration of multiplicity with Thor specifically.
Right, I get that because the thing about it is, and people take Greek mythology as something knowledge, something you learn inside college, but really, at one point, it was actually a religion. Like Socrates died because he didn't want people to believe in these multiple gods.
Yeah,
Like,
but that's too much work for people today. So they just reside in, I'll watch Marvel movies and I'll decorate my entire room to look like fucking Iron Man and Thor. Because it's easy, it's convenient. You can buy posters, you can buy comic books, and what's more important, you can have conversations with people online, and you can avoid criticism. You can avoid being chastised. There's not a lot of people who say, "Hey, I'm obsessed with Marvel comics," and are met with resentment. You know what I mean? Like that's a good thing of variability. Is the more niche, the more nook and cranny you get, and that's why this kind of ties into what I was saying about being able to pick up on communication with you. Like sometimes we talk about a topic like time, and a lot of the stuff you say, I believe in, and I also believe is essentially an orchard or a tree that is part of the soil that I believe to be, of a higher existence and of a higher, not control, but a higher perspective, a higher understanding, for sure. We don't have the perspective. Okay, maybe we do. Maybe we have the ability to have a perspective and an understanding for how things work on this planet that is aligned with how it came about and how it actually existed, like the reality of the situation. What if God, and that doesn't mean white man in the clouds with big beard, but what if God, what if the universe did put forth evolution on this planet? But what if that's an isolated event? What if evolution is exclusive to us here on this planet? And what if things work differently on another planet? What if they work differently on another planet? The variability. So then all of a sudden, like, you almost prove that variability is a constant in the universe.
oh, that's 100%. That's
Yeah, it's proven, right?
right.
So in order for that variability to exist, the way that things happen here on this planet aren't exclusive to this planet.
Okay.
So any deduction that we make about how life came about on this planet should remain exclusive to this planet. That goes for belief in God. That goes for belief in evolution. Like we have such a limited perspective. But then my question becomes, how do you grow that perspective?
Uh,
Because the way evolution works, in my opinion, and this isn't a knock on evolution, but you can learn the ins and outs of evolution, and all you're going to be doing is going backwards in time. You're going to be looking at how things came, what we came from.
right.
You're not going to be looking at what we're heading towards. The people that study evolution in 2,000 years might be doing that. But then my question becomes, is there a force? Is there a higher sense of existence and consciousness that allows for us to get to understand that before we get there? And if there is, can it be more than just science?
So
An understanding of everything of existence on this planet, if you could actually draw it out, and if it was irrefutable, if it answered every single question, if it was 100% accurate up to this point in time, this is limiting knowledge to right now and the past. Like, it's not saying anything about what happens next or anything like that. However, it creates a system of reason and a formula to where the variability that is to come in the future is still resolvable if you can crack the code for the present and the past. So let's just say, like, you come up with a theory or you come up with data and understanding that this is crazy. Um, okay, you were in the voice message that I left like 2 or 3 hours ago. I had that example of, like, you walk in a room and people are arguing 2 plus 2.
right.
Some people are saying 5, some are saying 6, some are saying 1. In mathematics, for some weird reason, we've unconsciously and consciously deduced that 2 plus 2 is 4, right? And that you can prove it, right?
Right.
So, how do you prove 2 plus 2 is 4?
I don't. But okay.
But no. Honest question. Like, if somebody came up to you and asked, I'm not asking you like a dummy, like I'm arguing that 2 plus 2 is not 4. But if somebody comes up to you, like if a child comes up to you and says, "Why is 2 plus 2 4?" What do you say to that kid? How do you prove it to
I
him?
mean,
Do
you
you
could
just write the
literally.
number 2 and plus 2, or do you hold your fingers up
You probably hold your fingers up or use an example of something near you.
with apples and stuff like that? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So what I'm suggesting is, why not try to do that with God? And if you did it, if you could do it, what would people have to say? Could people say it? Could they do it?
If it was irrefutable,
Yeah.
no, you really can't.
Okay. So if we get to that point in any amount of time, and this is where the scope of time is crazy, right? Because if you go back to our interstellar conversation, you could just say time doesn't exist, and you can say that, like, what I'm about to say doesn't even, like, you can't apply the laws of time to it, but I'm going to say it with the laws of time applied. So humanity has been here for conscious humanity. Let's give it, what, 20,000 years? Is that fair?
About since the cuneiforms with the Sumerians.
Okay, so we'll go 20,000 to 30,000 years of conscious life. When do we get to the point where, like, dropping the interpretation of the past is needed to prove the existence of God? Like, what if you can do it in real time? That's my theory.
But I think it has been done in real time. Like I watched a documentary on this tribe in Papua New Guinea that's never been touched.
Messed with, yeah.
Right, and so the thing about a human being, just, I mean, because you could go back in time and see like the ancient Egyptians. They had their gods. You go into a few years, 10,000, 20,000 years later, you go into 15,000 years later, you go into Greece where you have the Greek mythology. They created their own gods. And when I watched this documentary on Papua New Guinea, they created their own gods. It's they had like a snake god. They had like a god of darkness. It's like humanity. I think people get into reverse. It's not that God created humans. Humans created God.
Okay.
That's my. I think no matter what, if you cancel out all of religions today, eventually within 100 years, religion will come back again. And hey, maybe because there is a God and there is a higher power that we strive for, or some type of way we just need to find order.
Just fluctuate. Yeah, we go all over the place with it. You see all this variability over the course of time. Over the course of 20,000 years, Mo, how much variability have we seen when it comes to, believing in a higher power? We've seen people, like you said, worship snake gods. We've seen people worship God, like a gray-haired old man sky god. We've seen people worship comic book characters.
But how do we know who's right?
You look at the commonality. You the commonalities, in my opinion, are that okay. You're right. You're right. How do you know who's right?
Because the thing about it is the Bible, if you read Gilgamesh, if you read Egyptian, if you read Greek mythology, those all predated before Christianity. All of them stole stories from there.
Yeah.
So maybe Christianity is the multiplicity of the weaker versions of the
No
actual.
doubt. Of course.
Okay.
No doubt is.
Okay, we agree upon that.
No doubt is. What I like to look at is the potential of things. The potential that there was a man 2,000 years ago who strived to get as close to God as he understood God to be, and that he could strive to get it. I mean, at the end of the day, my view of like the man that Jesus could have been, and or whatever you want to, his proper name, Yahweh, whatever, Jehovah, whatever you want to use.
Right.
The name, it doesn't matter. But that there was someone walking this earth who strived to make the most reasonable decisions that he possibly could, and he was motivated by love every step of the way,
No.
and he tried to have people recognize that, and yeah, he tried to have people be influenced by that. But influence in a reasonable way is not a bad thing, in my opinion.
Okay, so my question is, okay, let's say like Jesus actually existed. Let's say like he was the Elon Musk of whatever, like a very popular person. I'm just using an example. Like he was like the popular person of that time, you know?
Yeah.
Can you still believe in a Jesus without believing in the miracles of him walking on water or turning water into wine? Can you just take it as a person who tried to live his best life?
Well, I would hope that, I know you're just asking that question from a baseline, but I would hope that you recognize that those are just like, that's just symbolism and
Okay. Okay.
and what's the word, metaphors and
But you do understand there's Christians who strongly believe that all of that was not metaphors.
oh, 100%. And when you sit back and you observe those people and you see, okay, what is them believing that actually happened? What has it resulted in? Like what do they do with that conviction? Like what do they do? Like what is their faith and their deep rooted belief that those were actual, like that the waves were literally parted, and that Moses like walked across the Red, and that Jesus could walk on water, or that the Red Sea was literally parted.
Right.
What does that do other than create the ability for them to tell that story? It does nothing. They can't replicate it. They can't convince you of it via evidence. They can, and that's what it comes down to. Now, if we like really sat down for like a week or two, and we had a back and forth about, and we drew it out, and we talked it out, and we wrote all this out faith is evidence-based. Now, the imperative for me scientifically is to showcase that evidence to you if we're having that sit down and like, okay, write down all the evidence. But what I'm suggesting is that the evidence accrues and it doesn't stop accruing. It's in real time, which is very interesting because I'm isolate, and so it's even tougher for me to like showcase the style of evidence that I'm suggesting. But it is communication based. A lot of it is it's observation. It's environmental in many ways. Um, it's tapping into this this streamline of energy that is definitely not an energy that is picked up by the human being on a like normal frequency. And so all that tells me is that it's different than the standard means of communication. But at the same time, it opens up my belief that telepathy is going to happen. It opens up my belief that we're in an era where people have to confront their quote unquote demons and their transgressions from the past, and that has some biblical connotation, but I don't tie myself to like that, like the Book of Revelations or anything like that, or the fact that Jesus' second coming, he'll come back and everybody will have to atone for their sins. I believe in atonement. I don't believe in the biblical like word for word breakdown of how atonement is going to work here via the second coming in the like Christian form of it. But I believe in atonement. I believe that if you've lived a life that is full of bad decisions that you have had choices to make, then you will continue to experience those experiences until you start making the right decisions. Otherwise, you will live a miserable life.
Well, right now, you're touching into Buddhism because in Buddhism, of course, karma comes from Buddhism. If you live a fucked up life now, your next life is going to be fucked up until you reach a level of quote unquote goodness. Then you can reach nirvana and break free of the chains of having a fucked up life.
Yeah, and so try telling that to people. And it's like it doesn't matter which style it is, bro. It's abrasive, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. So all that the Christian faith seems to do is build upon that belief, and they said, okay, if you don't do it, somebody's gonna do it for you. And like that's weird in a way. That's like blackmail in a way. To go ahead and like write a whole 100 pages on how if you don't change the way that you live, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you don't change, God, in the form of Jesus, the second coming, will change everything for you, and there'll be a period of atonement. Now, it won't be easy because there'll be 7 years of tribulation, and there'll be all these terrible things that happen, and the four horsemen. Hey, personally, between you and me, bro, I like all that shit. That shit to me, like, I would decorate my room with like four horsemen.
Funny. I'm pretty sure that is.
Yeah, but like that's the kind of shit that I do like is like that sort of myth and that sort of lore. I find it to be very cool, like the Seven Seals and stuff like that. It's intricate to the point where the personalities that came up with those stories or that wrote them down, they were on some shit, man. So I mean, it's interesting. It's entertaining at the very least.
Right. It could have been a Stan Lee of that time.
Could have been the Stan Lee of that time.
But
that, I mean,
going back to what you said. So I mean, the question I had, like even if you believe in Jesus, can you take away the miracles, right? Because my thing is, There was no, like, everybody have this preconception that what exists now existed then. Back then it was only word of mouth. And the thing about it is, just like the if I have 12 people and I say I went to the store, the second person be like, I went to the store and bought candy. The third person can be like, I went to the store and bought Snickers and a balloon. And then you know what I'm saying? Like, it keeps getting more elaborate.
Convoluted. Yeah.
Yeah, the further down you go. So I can believe in a Jesus that
It's like
existed.
multiplicity.
Right, right. It gets less and less. Well, this one, it gets more and more elaborate, but it's less than the base of the thing. So I can see how the miracles came into play, but I think that it downgrades what
You went
actually.
to the store.
Yeah,
You went to the store.
right. And this is where a lot of atheists come into.
What if you went to the store though? Is there?
Right, right. No, no. I get that. That's what I'm fighting. I'm fighting on your side right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What I'm saying is,
Let's keep it at there is a God. Now, how do you prove that and erase all the fucking misinterpretation and the chance of misinterpretation and
and
the possibility?
that misinterpretation and elaboration is what gives atheists the power of their side of the argument. 'Cause they're like,
1,000%.
where do you see a unicorn? Because unicorns exist in the Bible. Where do you see a dragon? Dragons existed in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe it should have stayed in the purest form. But then the thing about it is, when you're telling a story around the fire, you know, you have a group of people from the fucking 2100, like, not 2100, like literally the year 100 AD.
Yeah.
Hearing a nigga went to the store is boring as fuck. So
Right.
you have to elaborate in order to keep the human mind interested.
Well,
So,
back then it's different, right? No, back then I might disagree a little with you.
okay,
Let's
fine.
let's put ourselves in the mind of Neanderthals, and I say, I went to the store.
Right.
Everybody else is gonna be intrigued by that.
Right.
If you tell them something they ain't never heard before, you have the reaction you get is one of intrigue. It's one of attention. So then that's what encourages you to continue. And then from there, you're almost so like the game of telephone is the analogy you were telling me, right? But if I tell you I went to the store, you don't. It's back to it's back to the Neanderthal mind and the way that the primitive mind works. I don't think the primitive mind has the ability to concoct variability and interpretation just based on that simple of a statement because the story kept going. So it's interesting. You could be dealing with like origin stories. You could have had a handful of people or one person who was very well knowledged in the past enough to the point where I won't go that far. I'll just keep it simple, bro. I don't want to convolute. So I went to the store turns into a tell us more situation, and then that person goes ahead and they create a story from there, and then
Right.
through that narrative, misinterpretation comes along. It's kind of like the news. Like the news will tell us a story, and the event might have actually happened. I'm not doubting that there were protests at the Capitol building last year, and that people rushed the Capitol building. Nobody's doubting that. But then the next day they'll come and they'll add a layer to it, and they'll say, blah blah blah, this happened, or there are emails involved, blah blah blah, this happened, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, this happened, and they'll keep the story going because they realize that you had interest in the original story.
Right.
The original, what actually occurred, garnered interest. And bro, now we're tapping into just like the idea that capitalizing and making money or having power over people is something that was probably present in the human mind and psyche for as long as you can remember. Probably around the fight or flight era, like the idea that if I tell somebody something or if I have a power over somebody, I can get them to do whatever I want for them, and I can have a
Right.
reign over them. So then the storyteller realizes that that just telling a story garners him or her attention / the the ability to, you know, dominate, the ability to
More mating
control,
possibilities.
more mating possibilities. It all goes back to that. But the crazy part out of all that is that the baseline, like, you went to the store.
Right, right.
Like, you went to the store. So I'm not interested in. I I don't want. I don't want to create a cult. I don't want to create a religion. I don't want to have a following of a million people. I don't want to have power and influence over anybody. All I want is I want to be in tune with the reality of the situation. That's all I've ever asked for. And I feel like I've always come from a good place with it. I've always come from a place of genuineness, and I actually apply it to my life. Like, I don't, from my estimation, I can't be an observer of my every single behavior, but I treat people with respect. I
Me
treat
too.
people with kindness, and that's it. Like, I live a simple life in that regard, and I keep it as simple as I can.
It's so much easier, bro. So much better
Yeah.
peace of mind. I would treat the lady at Burger King the same way I would treat some billionaire. If a billionaire is a piece of shit, I would rather hold a conversation with a genuine person.
Yeah,
Your status doesn't matter.
absolutely.
But my one thing I want to say, like we're trying to go back into the mentality of 2,000 years ago. I really don't think. I mean, I could be 100% wrong because this is just off the top of my head. I really don't think we can hold a conversation with someone from 50 years ago if they were up here today. Because let's say like somebody from 50 years ago, well, shit, 50 years ago is like only 1970. I'm thinking it's like 1960. But let's say 1970, you know? Let's say like somebody from the 1970s, they come in there like, when I was alive, I went to Japan. You're like, oh, cool. And to them, that was one of the greatest feats. You're like, oh, so did you use like Expedia? Did you like did you use like a translation app? They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no, I was like just in Japan. Like, it's very hard for us to hold a conversation with someone that died, that didn't see the progression of technology. Let's say like they died in 1970 and then they were revived now. It will be very hard for that person and you to hold a conversation.
Absolutely.
So try to imagine going back 2,000 years and holding the conversation. It's people have the arrogance that, oh, I can get inside their mindset, but the mindset is it's kind of like a black person being like, well, I went to the back of the bus. We're like, why the fuck did you go to the back of the bus, dude?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it's very hard, even though that it's only a 50-year difference and people 50 years ago are still alive today,
Yeah.
but they seen the progression. But if someone was to die, let's say like a dude from the 1950s was to come, and we're like, let's catch the bus to go to fucking like the next city. His ass will run to the back. You're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Doesn't that make the question? Doesn't that make the baseline of I went to the store that much more interesting? And I'm using that as a code for like
Dive deeper into that
let's
thought.
talk about God.
Okay.
You could go, no, that's it. Let's just say the code for go like let's say
Existence of God is let's go to the store.
Yeah, yeah. Let's say 1,000 years ago, you travel back in time and you walk into any building and you say, "Let's talk about God." Does it really change?
I think the base is still slightly because
Conversation. It's one of the few things you could go to many points in history, and as long as you spoke the language that was spoken at the time, you can write on hieroglyphic wall. You can write symbols on rocks 20,000 years ago.
right. If you learn hieroglyphics now,
Let's talk about God.
yeah, you'll be able to communicate. But the thing is, the thing that varies the most is that let's say like if you go back to 1,000 years, when they came out with what King James was what 18th century, 19th century,
Yeah.
like
No, it's 14th, 15th.
okay, whenever it was, you know. I mean, I'm not 100% familiar with it. The thing about it is his version is different than the version that they had. So some of the things that you would say would be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's bullshit too. Like, I mean, I don't need to register or sync with any of that. It's just that's the extended, like, I went to the store, I bought Cheetos, I bought applesauce,
There was this fine girl at the ATM. Okay, just leave it at. I went to the store.
Right. No, that conversation can be had. I went to the store.
That conversation could be had throughout the history of time.
Right.
So that conversation is like irrefutable. That conversation stands the test of time. Anything that does that can't be like it's almost like been our mission to sometimes I put a lot of investment in like this theory that nothing that's temporary I want anything to do with.
Oh, I'm not a fad guy at all, bro. I would.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with anything that's temporary because it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like, why would I want to bother? So I try to have a minimalist diet that is based on stuff that's always been here: meat, meat, vegetables, and fruit, and that's pretty much it. I don't. My weakness is energy drinks. I have an energy drink, and other than that, I just drink water. That's it. Like my
Right.
diet is so limited, and people look at me and they're like, "You're not enjoying all the things in life." I'm like, bro, people don't realize that like all the food, it might taste great and all that, but it's all really just multiplicity to me. It's all like a variable of something. Even down to the restaurants, like the new restaurants they open and shit, they might be great, they might be fatty. You can be able to sit down, have a nice dinner with your girl. It's different, you know, if you're going on a date or something. But when it's just me, I'm like, hey, I don't need to participate in any of that weird shit. So,
Right.
so when it comes to like talking about higher consciousness discussions, I don't want like any of the fattiness. And when
Right. The excess fat.
any of the the fads like
Oh yeah.
I don't want any of the fatty like temporary stuff that on the grand scheme of things. That's to say, religion even in my opinion, I think religion is a fad.
That's so funny that you say that because it plays off in
Understanding of what religion is.
because 2009, 2010ish. The chick I was dating, she's like, "Why do you just keep wearing like a Ralph Lauren or like polo shirts and your cargo shorts and the jeans and like this? Do you see that people are wearing True Religion?" Which is funny because that religion is a fad. I was like, this is gonna go away. Like,
The clothing company tried to start codes like we're the true religion.
right. And of course, what did you see? By 2012, they got a people with a shitload of closet of True Religion that they don't even wear because the fucking shit is out of date.
Yeah,
It was a fad.
it's crazy. And you know what? I just try to keep shit as simple as possible. And I always wanted to be, in tune with the like I wouldn't say I pray in the colloquial sense of like what prayer means, but I've always talked to myself like in my head as if I was relaying a message to a higher power, and if the higher power was registering the messages, all I wanted was reciprocity, and I wanted indication that the message was making it through. So I would always just say like, just like give me a chance, like show me what you're really about, and I'll show you what I'm really about, or I'll show you what I'm really about first, and then if I'm being genuine with it and I'm being real and you pick up on it like on an energy level, then you should reciprocate, because that's how it works with people, right? Like if I was faking this shit, like our conversations wouldn't go very far. If
It
I faked
wouldn't.
this shit.
I would be able to
If
see your
I-
bullshit within 2 minutes.
If I hadn't watched Glass, we couldn't have a conversation on Glass. Like,
Right.
It just wouldn't happen. So I wouldn't even I wouldn't try to. I have in the past. I've tried to, like, if people start talking quantum physics with me or something like
Try
that.
to bullshit your way.
I know a baseline of quantum physics, but I'm quick enough to be able to pick up like details of which I could tap into, and then I could start talking about that, and then relate it back to the bigger discussion. But if somebody starts like mentioning some strict
like calculus laws and shit like that, I'll be lost in a second.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so that's kind of just like the way that I wanted my view and my assessment of God to be. I wanted it to be something that I could relate to, that was personal to me. I didn't want a fad. I didn't want a trend. I didn't want what I was observing people like were conditioned to think. I talked to God, and in my opinion, whatever that means, and I laid like not demands, but I said like I want to be there. So get me to where I am there. And over the course of many years, you get there, and you get there without help, but you get there with like the most help at the same time. It's like, why would I want people to take me and lead me to God when, if there is a God, I could just ask God.
Right.
I don't want the middleman. I don't want the telephone player who's number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. I want the guy who went to the store
Right.
to tell me what he did at the store and how he went about it at the store. That's the communication that I believe if we tap into, and if we do it with the right, like, it's crazy. Like, I'm sure these conversations were being had 2,000 years ago, but the difference is you had people that were trying to turn it into like a power game, a money game,
Yeah, of course.
influence game, and all that.
There's ulterior motives. I mean, the reason why you get married in the church, the reason why you have reconciliation with the church, they usually have to pay for that. Like, it bothered me when I was a kid that if my mom told me I could talk to God directly through my prayers, why am I going to a priest to tell him my sins?
Right.
What? Why do I need a middleman?
So he can have a role in society, because they probably needed to fucking create jobs, because they were in a recession.
Right.
The recession was, and so they look around. They're like, hey, we need some sort of fucking system to manipulate these people, because we're not going to be able to last very long if we don't.
Right. And the thing that people do not like to talk about during like the 1400s, 1300s, whatever like that, a majority of the population was illiterate. So a priest was literate, or a preacher.
Convinced. Yeah.
So these are the only people that can give you the word of the Bible, because you couldn't interpret the Bible because you could not read. So it did give them
turned into.
Huh?
Look what it's turned into now. Not even outside of the religious and the church aspect. Look at how we have formed the education system.
Right.
Like we almost say, like, in layman's terms, you're dumb unless you go through 20 years of being taught everything about history, everything about science, everything about mathematics. And granted, obviously, there's great reasons to go to school, and there's baselines there for sure. But at the end of the day, you're letting people who, on paper, have like an authority over you to teach you based on a curriculum that is approved by a group of people. The education system is a multiplicity of the religious system, like 100%.
Oh yeah, 100% agree.
Copied the way that early 10th, 11th century religious establishments were indoctrinating people, and said, okay, we're going to do this too.
Right. It makes sense. It's a good business model.
Yeah, it's a good business model. Absolutely. That's the easiest way to put it. It could have absolutely nothing to do with God.
Right. The thing, like, if I was to go, I can't go into God's mind, but we were made in the image of him, through the Bible, whatever like that. But this is gonna sound kind of fucking childish, but I do understand this point, like, which may not even been his fucking thought process, But the fact that, like, when you're a kid and your mother gives you like fucking like dinosaurs, to fucking play with, eventually you get bored with them, and then you move on to like fucking toy soldiers. Like, I felt like God got bored of the dinosaurs. Like, he thought it was a really good idea to have like 10-story tall animals, and he was like,
these motherfuckers are dumb as shit. Let me just throw an asteroid and start a new type of civilization.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. That's,
Because I mean, pretty much dinosaurs gonna evolve just so what they were. You know, humans can evolve, but I believe at one point, humans gonna reach their peak of evolution. And if I was a god, I would get rid of them and then replace them with something else, maybe like an AI.
that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting. No comment.
Like I said, I can't go into God's mind, so I'm not trying to make fun of it.
No comment. But like, all right. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, we've had this AI human conversation before. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to add.
No. I know you have to keep your thing where you can't really make fun of the thing, whatever. But I'm not making fun of it at all. But I can see the boredom of just having dinosaurs.
That's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely.
Like kids eventually get tired of toys, and then they eventually replace them with something else, maybe like a human friend.
1,000%. But this goes back to the thing of like human consciousness. Like dinosaurs, did they really have a level of consciousness that evolved at all?
I don't. To me, I don't think so because when they went inside the brain, I mean, like nobody can be 100% because it's all still theory, you know. The size of their brain only can bring them to so much of a level.
Now, did the human being have? Do we? This is our saving grace, perhaps. Does the human being have a history of evolving its consciousness?
I believe so. I believe
100%.
100%.
So what you're doing is if there's a God, you're basically pleading your case and you're saying don't send an asteroid. like look, we're doing our fair share, even if it's just a handful of us, and like you know, this is where it's crazy because I've read the Bible like maybe one time total, word for word, and you know I dabble a little bit here and there, maybe like once or twice a year I'll pick it up and I'll randomly like jump to some part
Right.
and see if it correlates to something I'm experiencing in life, just to test it out, just to test the waters and see what it's like, because it's not like I listen to a preacher read the Bible to me. I read it in my voice in my head when I'm reading the words.
Because the preacher is an interpretation. 4 preachers can read the exact same verses and have 4 different interpretations.
Yeah, the black preachers will have their version of telling you the Bible. A young preacher will have
Right.
their version. A white preacher
Right.
will have this
Older
version.
guy would have a version.
Absolutely, they all have their versions of getting the point across, and I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
So I'll just read it for myself, and I'll see what it is. But what was I gonna say? Oh shit, where was I going with this? What was I saying right before this? We were talking about the dinosaurs, right?
Right. In the evolution of
the evolution, the evolution of consciousness, and how human beings have definitely evolved. Oh yeah. So I was saying, so then you get into the actual like parts of the Bible that do have some merit to them. Something.
Yeah. You said you dabbled now and then you read it full term and then now you go back and read it and.
So what I was gonna say is like the idea of like mercy or forgiveness, for example. Take a look at that. So, like, if there is a God and your theory or your playful theory is correct about the dinosaurs, and you know he or she gave him, God gave him 10,000 years to evolve, and they just didn't do it.
Shit, that 130 million years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
Like our brain can't even fathom. I mean, he gave them their chance, you know. I guess he was just like, dude, y'all just not going anywhere.
Right, and you know they had babies. They developed diets, and they grazed, and they probably enjoyed life for what it's worth. but they didn't evolve consciously. So then asteroid renders them all
Just a
extinct.
little erase. Take a little pencil.
Except for, strangely, the ones that did evolve, perhaps, and had wings or had
Right.
means of surviving underwater, they survived.
Alligators.
So, yeah, I think it works the same way with humans, bro. It's like you experience. It's You can equate it to forgiveness and mercy, but I could say, like, if an asteroid like event, or let's just say our asteroid is plague or disease,
Right.
that over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, all of humanity will perish except for 1% that chooses to evolve along with the lines of which are necessary to survive for the future. Again, it's almost poetic. You can say all of that is divine and
You can say
divinely
that. Yeah.
sort of constructed, or you can say that it's just evolution and that you're Kevin Costner in Waterworld. But how do you know how to evolve to um, defeat something or to eclipse something that hasn't happened yet?
Well, one way, if this answers your question, because I know a current event and a past event to do both of those.
Okay.
Because the thing was, again, Neanderthals went extinct, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they had a larger brain, but some reason
I
they.
don't know. You've been to Alabama recently?
I get what you're saying there. I'm trying to be serious here, X. Like,
Have you been to Arkansas?
right.
I don't know, man.
But the thing was how they were able to have their genealogy still existing without being totally from being extinct. They started mating with the humans, right? So the theory is Neanderthals had the thicker eyebrows. Like on their eyebrows, you see like a bone sticking out, kind of like what you see in the caveman, right? Sometimes there's very rarely a situation you'll see a person where their eyebrows, their bone over their eyebrows stick out further than a normal human. Those are traces of Neanderthals, right? They had to eventually incorporate themselves within the humans. Right now, with Elon Musk theory is that if AI is being left alone, it will eventually extinct human existence because it wouldn't see a need for us. So Elon Musk right now is not saying that we shouldn't have AI. We should intertwine ourselves within AI and have computer chips within the human brain. So let's say like AI is the next version, there will still be humans there, but they will be partially AI. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Just
No, that makes sense. But it doesn't coincide with the way that historical evolution works and survival works. Typically, within any species, it's been the species that has learned to adapt and evolve.
adaptation is key.
Yes, that has learned to adapt and evolve, that has survived. And typically, historically, the adaptation of that species has been isolated to a small percentile of that species. So, where I disagree with Elon Musk's theory is that the synthesis of AI and artificial intelligence in human beings would be needed in order to, sustain and move on and like progress. Um, yeah, we kind of have like some preview of what that looks like right now. We kind of have a very baseline preview of what it looks like, and it's almost the opposite. So if the human being subjects themselves to AI synthesis, well, um, let's just say they subject themselves to the simulated world, like the world of the internet.
It'll be like Neuralink. It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, in my opinion, we have a preview of that, and if somebody spends all their day on the internet or all their day in a simulated world, which is, yeah, I see what you're saying with the Neuralink thing. So I don't want to argue a different point. I guess what I was suggesting is that it's more of a regression, in my perspective, if the future is living like a simulated version of yourself, it's more of a regression because we already see that. And it's like the second life thing where people are detached from reality and instead they're living online, but like they're not really.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is for your genes to be passed down, you will have to sort of because there's probably a shitload in there because it was proven that Neanderthals had larger brains than humans, right? So they had a bunch of Neanderthals like these humans are a bunch of fucking idiots. I'm gonna isolate myself from the human civilization, and some humans was like we need to adapt with them if shit was to go down, and then shit went down, and the people that isolated themselves, their genes was never towards the future.
I see.
You get what I'm
I see
saying?
what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's not saying that it's going to be a better future, but in order for you to your genes to survive, you will have to come to some sort of a adaptation.
Interesting. Um, what if it's not limited to genes anymore?
No, well, once you get to AI, it's no longer on genes. It's fucking bytes. It's bits.
Oh yeah. Well, what if it's? I'm thinking different than both of those things. I'm thinking like, what if it could be based on like impact or influence?
Go deeper.
Okay, so look at Hitler for example. Like that's the negative influence example, right? So let's reverse Hitler and let's say that let's reverse Genghis Khan. Fuck that. We'll do a reverse of Hitler.
Okay.
The level of impact that he had on millions of people's lives, tens of millions of people's lives, has given lasted 70, 80 years, right?
All right.
Up to this point, it'll probably last. I hope it doesn't last forever, but I mean the actual events, of course, will be unerased. You can't erase them from history, but the level of influence, I don't know, maybe another generation or so, like to the point. It's like 9/11, right? Like my daughter's not gonna have the same emotional investment in
Exactly.
9/11 as I had. I don't have the same emotional investment as my parents had when it comes to like post World War II. Actually, they don't have the same as their parents had because that happened in the 40s, of course. So if you reverse that and you do it in a positive way, it's not genetics. It's not. What was the other one? The AI. Yeah, it's not AI like programming or anything like that. Man, it's hard to say, bro. It's like we don't know, man. Like even this conversation that we're having right now, we don't know if there's like a way for it to be disseminated via artificial intelligence. You're right, like via artificial intelligence. And what if we're breaking new ground with this conversation and we don't know it? Like what if we are saying things that have not been said in the way that we're saying them to the point where we're speaking them into our phones and our phones are designing algorithms around the conversation that we're having in a good way, in a positive way, to create news articles or opinion pieces in people's feeds tomorrow that are generated by AI completely.
Right.
Like completely AI generated, but they use fake faces like they do on, this person does not exist. And they create like what if there's a whole sector of positively trained AI to where the algorithm is set and designed to influence people in a good way, and it's completely based on communication, and right shit. Reason. At the end of the day, it's just reason. What if reason is contagious?
I believe it is.
Okay. And this goes back to like the walking into a room and a bunch of people are arguing what 2 + 2 is, and you walk into the room and you're like, it's 4, and I can prove it to you. So what if you can do that with a way of life, a way of living, like the dangerous talks, like living in a way to where the best results are elicited, and that's true freedom, right? Like that's real freedom because nobody's fucking messed with that. Like nobody has tried that other than the people that get criticized for being historical figures that tried to do it. like
Right.
even Martin Luther King, bro, he gets treated just like Jesus, like just like Jesus Christ. He gets exonerated, he gets executed, he gets exiled, he gets criticized, he gets chastised, he gets hated on by this group of people, he gets loved by this group of people. But at the end of the day, he's not here anymore because he was probably a little too real, and he was tapping into some shit that was gonna change all the algorithms around for that time and for that era. And they said, nah, we can't deal with that. But
True.
what I'm suggesting is we've been past the point of no return for 20, 30 years now. There's no reversing what has occurred. There's no prevention.
Right.
You can't go back in time. You can't snipe 1,000 people that have already been influenced, and that 1,000 it works like a virus and the other way around. It's like it's a viral contagion epidemic of reason, and it's slowly taking effect because if it went quickly, it would be a little too overwhelming for people. You can't change some of the lifestyles and some of the conditioning, de-patterning people. Like some of the people are in deep, bro. Like as far as like negativity is concerned and making wrong choices, you can't snap them into like a state of noble existence overnight. You almost have to leave it up to them. But at the same time, you have to. Oh, I don't know.
But the sad part about that is the people that you can't snap out of existence are reproducing, and then they reproduce their thoughts into their children, and then their children reproduce it. You have to have somebody to break the chain.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult because it's so ingrained into their brain on what they believe is the truth that is nothing like you hear like a white person saying black people are bad, and you're like, okay, well that child will never believe that, because that's just not the fucking truth. But if that child grows up with that mindset and has no one to tell it differently,
It's difficult to reverse.
yeah, it's very difficult to reverse.
Do you believe that over the last 50 years that has reduced at all? Do you believe that like black children or any minorities, the children that are born are a little less influenced by that sort of rhetoric than they used to be?
I think so, and well, sort of. The only reason why I say this, and I'm not really in tune with it because I'm not like a huge gamer or whatever like that. I believe the golden age of communication with the internet allowed this. Let's say like there's a white kid who has a hatred towards black kids because their parents said so, but then he enjoys Call of Duty, and then he gets on a team with some black kids and they just chop it up, man. And he's like trying to tell his parents like, I met Jeffrey and he's a really cool fucking guy. And you see a lot of more interracial.
There's reason there. It's like if the kid comes, it's back to that analogy. If a kid comes back from playing a video game or communicating in a Zoom meeting with a friend who lives across the country, and he's a really cool kid, and he's black, and you're black, and each other and you learn from one another and all of that. All of a sudden, like the rhetoric and the opinion that mom and dad had about 2 + 2 = 5.
Right, which is definitely
All
wrong.
of a sudden, you get the reality that 2 + 2 is not 5.
Right.
And mom and dad have nothing to say to you. They can get angry about it. They can get upset, but all that really is resentment for themselves because, like, they didn't make the choices for themselves to refuse that incorrectness, that incorrect assessment that 2 + 2 is 5.
Right.
They always had the opportunity every day, and this is why, like, I don't hate. Now that I think about it, I don't hate the Kanye West comment from like 6-7 years ago about slavery being a choice. I get that it was like really, really, really poorly executed. But like from day one, from day one, it could have been what's the word? Rebellion from day one.
Yeah.
From the first day. I know you're dealing with like one side of history that had like all the power and all the influence and all the physical dominance, but if you knew that going into it, and you knew how it was going to end up, and you had the opportunity to not go through 100 years, 200 years of suffering for it, you got to take that. Like, you got to take that opportunity at all costs. It's like the same thing now. It's like we almost did it with COVID, for example. Like the way that the government, look at the way the government in Canada is different than the government here in the U.S. Like they're still in lockdowns over there, all this bullshit and all that. It's like the people in Canada are so complacent, and that's my birth country and shit like that. And I'm like looking at them, and I see my aunt posting on Facebook. She'll like show a picture of a sporting event in the U.S. and then she'll say, "Over here in Canada, we're still on lockdown." I'm like, "Well,
Wow.
that's a choice. That's a
Right.
choice. Like you are complacent to that choice." It's a little different with slavery. I get it. The same thing could be said for the Holocaust. It's a little different, but these are examples of history that are meant to show us that, like sooner or later, that behavior of submitting to other human beings needs to stop. There's no there's no there's no place for it. There's no place for submitting to another human being at all.
Yeah.
Like relinquishing your power of freedom to another human being. That's what did we say an hour and a half ago? That's evil, right?
It is evil when you have the opportunity.
To evil. Look what it did. Like I'm not calling the recipients of the short end of the stick evil. I'm calling them participants in the extension of the evil that occurred. And it's accurate. Like if slaves rebel from day one, the evils of slavery don't exist. If Jewish people rebel with the Nazis, yeah, you probably still end up with a massacre of Jewish people, but they're dying by like fighting Nazis. They're not dying. They're not dying by walking into gas chambers.
Right.
And it's not evil if they're at war. I mean, war. Wait a second. Some people call war evil, and they have merit there. But like, if they literally revolt in the streets and they bum rush Nazis, like the passengers on that airplane did on 9/11. Like 9/11 is looked at as an evil act, right? But
Right.
the events that took place on that plane
Was
are
not evil. Right.
Because they never transpired into evil like effects.
Right.
So I mean, it's evil is a choice.
But
Evil is a choice.
sometimes there's inevitability that plays into it because so let's use the 9/11 case, right? So the thing is, the cockpit to the pilots is 100% locked, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, even if you take down the gun holders and the knife holders on the plane, you still can't stop the inevitability of the pilot crashing the plane. That makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So from my mindset, if I'm sitting down, I can either crash because this pilot's gonna crash regardless. He's already on this mindset, or I can get stabbed and still crash. And I may be thinking from a lower mindset. But that will be my immediate, like I could sit down, like people say, if I'm crashing inside of a plane, I will call my mom and tell them I love them. Dude, if you crashing inside of a plane, you have no clue what the fuck you would do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, but off the top of my head, just
Well, there is one thing that you would that you might have the opportunity to do, and that would be to accept the inevitable outcome. And I think that's what the people on that plane did, is that they realized that the outcome, there was like a 0.0001% chance that they survived.
right.
And so, reason sort of hijacked, and no pun intended. That's terrible. But
Again,
reason overrode like their function, their functionality. Like the people that flew into New York, they never really into the towers. They never really had the opportunity to kick into that mode because they were just flying. They just took off, and the plane veered into the buildings. It didn't. It wasn't heading downward. And also, the people on the airplane in Pennsylvania that crashed, that was heading for the Pentagon, they were able to hear about the planes that crashed into the towers. So they had reason, they had motivation to realize the situation that was at hand. And so they took action based on that. So, I mean, that's crazy, and that's crazy.
right.
Because shouldn't death motivate people to do that in life? Isn't death an inevitability?
Yeah, death is inevitability. There's
Okay. So shouldn't that override people's systems, regardless of whether or not they are going to die tomorrow, in the next minute and a half, or in 60 years? Shouldn't it? Should Is there a latency effect there, or because it feels like people wait until the last second, and then you hear about life flashing before your eyes, all that. I think there's a science to that. I think if your life flashes before your eyes when you die, and like you see all these things, and you have this wave of regret, or all these moments, and that's because you made some weird choices along the way.
true.
I think that's like your memory or your brain, like shutting down in such an abrupt manner that it doesn't have time to register what's happening, and that all of the like misalignment along the way results in like a sensory overload, like in that moment.
Right. I mean, which plays into my theory, but
What's that?
that we're both already dead, and our life is flashing before our eyes, and we're living it right now, and it factors in uh, deja vu.
Oh yeah, but that's because of consciousness, right?
Right.
Like we have the consciousness of that, so our consciousness keeps us alive.
Right. Which is consciousness is something you really like metaphysical. You really can't. It's. I mean, scientists can't even explain why this certain part of the body, like your fucking hand, doesn't experience like consciousness alone. Like if you cut off the brain, like the rest of the. And it's weird because bugs, their brain is throughout their whole body. That's why you can cut off an insect's head and the rest of the body will still live.
Still move. They
Because
move around.
the brain is throughout the whole body, but all of our consciousness, our whole concept of the world is trapped within our skull, which is. But I dig it because I wouldn't want to see my head get cut off and I walk up and pick up my head, you know? That would fuck with me. I appreciate if it was God's design that if the fucking head gets cut off, everything goes.
Right. It's pretty swift.
Yeah. I can respect that from a God's point of view.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. Every time we talk, I like I know that the effect of the conversation is going to be a good one both ways, like both for me and you, and also for like the next conversation. Like we started with Interstellar, but look, like even the baselines of that of what we were talking about, then they come full circle. There's a thread like in the
Right.
conversation.
But the thing is, it's an orchid. Like it's a tree. It branches out because the thing is,
Yeah.
our conversation is between us. But the thing is, when I speak to other people that feel on the intelligence level, I reference things that you said or conversations
Yeah.
you said, and that also brings into a seat inside their brain where that can move. Like one of the coolest things that I mean, we said a shitload of cool things, but one thing that I found really intriguing was when we were at Twin Peaks and you said, what is the next level of hierarchy? Like we
Right.
went to like cavemen, like the strongest man was considered the highest, and then eventually became the richest person, and now it's like rich and famous is like the hierarchy. Like what's next? That's considered the top level of humans.
On a surface level or on a deeper level.
I think intelligence. Like I think Elon Musk
Yeah,
is
on the surface level, it's still going to be the person who has the most influence, and that's going to be like via internet, social media, and all that stuff. But behind the scenes, it might still be the person the people who have the most influence. But what that means, like outside of the public perspective, is the people that are like running running the shit as far as the state of consciousness is concerned.
right.
And I mean, that's kind of what we get at and what we dance around in these conversations a lot of times is like there should be nothing wrong with thinking and feeling that you can be that person if you're coming from the right place.
Right.
You know, like ain't nobody trying to concentration camp people. ain't nobody ain't nobody trying to lock people up or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite. It's more of a liberation movement because people are locked up
Right.
from a consciousness aspect and the perspective of like using your freedom of choice. People are disillusioned and thinking that they have that. So if you can broaden their perspective of what freedom and what love is and concepts like that, and you have the ability to do it, then you try to do it. And if it's provable that you do, you continue to do it. And that's on the hierarchy that's probably where it goes, but it's not the hierarchy that we're talking. It's not like it's not a very public facing hierarchy. It's not like kings and queens and nobles and stuff like that. It can be, but it's behind the scenes more so. It's and that's where it taps into. It gets a little deeper with me when we start having that conversation because to me that's the reward. That's like the give and take aspect of believing in more and having faith in a little bit more is that you actually do have compensation for it, but it doesn't come in like the traditional forms of what you what we've been led to believe like compensation is, money and
Right. I believe the money will eventually go.
notoriety and fame and all that. Those are all things that other human beings can give you, and it's okay to be interested in them. And it pleases the ego to have attention and notoriety and be an infamous figure in history. And that's all good, and people can strive to do that. But if there's more than that, like if there's a God and you're recognized by God as a leader or someone in a position to like usher in a movement or a wave of consciousness or a change in the way that things happen and mean, that's like, there's not much that, if you believe in all that, there's not much that can eclipse that feeling. There's not much that gets higher than that. It's like the ultimate honor in many ways. It's like, I equate it to doing your job at work, doing it well, and actually being recognized for it by your boss or your superior who's in place.
Right.
You don't have to. You don't need to use that exact like verbiage when you're talking about God, because I don't view God as a superior. I view God as somebody, some entity who wants company and who wants people to align with what's going on, the foundational like creation of the universe and how it came about, and the intelligent design that got us here can be incorporated into our consciousness, and we can take it over in our realm of existence, and we can apply the same things. Like when you said that a long time ago, you said, well, I think I can be my own God, and I can.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with that.
I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean you're the God.
Right.
It means that you can synthesize with what the idea of what God is, and you can run your own show. That's ultimate freedom. That's like a privilege that you can have, and that you can choose, and that you can take control over. But you'll find out very quickly, like, so.
Okay.
So
What?
let's imagine that you're like completely ego-driven and out for all the wrong things, and you also think you're God. You'll
Right.
find out very quickly that you can think all those things, the results and what you
You're
do
not.
aren't going to be so like great. I mean, it's going to be easy. It's going to be stuff that anybody can do.
Right. Wait. I want to go back to the point that you said earlier. So,
Yeah.
of course, this is dumbed down all the fucking way, even though it's higher conscious than another person would think.
That's good. I like that sometimes. It's
So,
to be that hour where it's like, yeah, dumb down's all right.
so my thing is,
2.5 hours of fucking dope ass shit, man. Let's do a little dumb down. Let's do it.
so from what I understood, so I mean, I just need you to repeat this part. So you said God isn't higher?
On this,
Because I want to reference something to that. Not questioning your thoughts. I just want to, because okay, this is my thought. If you said God isn't higher, but
God is exponentially higher to me.
Okay.
In my opinion, but as far as the ability to create with pure intention and like love at the core of it, God is the soil. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is you can be the soil too.
because I want to reference God. Not saying this nigga is God, but what I'm saying is I was looking at a position from a Mark Zuckerberg. Like Mark Zuckerberg isn't better than any one of us. All he did was provide a platform for us to exist within a social media. Kind of like God provided us a universe to exist within us.
Yeah, absolutely. But anybody who creates a business and hires people does the same thing
Oh.
to a certain degree. And
Okay.
anybody who launches a business on their own, so let's say in God's language, that is, creates a world
Okay.
or creates a universe. So you create a business as a human being, and all of a sudden you say, I want to bring people on board with this business idea, and I want them to flourish, and I want them to find good work here and benefit from it and find it redeeming. So that's like, okay, God creates Adam and Eve in the traditional sense, and he says, okay, you can come to the garden here and you can enjoy all these fruits of labor, and it's a little different but the baseline analogy I was going with is that like the creative synthesis and the creative movement behind
what Mark Zuckerberg did is he created a platform. Yes.
Right. Kind of. I mean, like honestly, like the world is a real social experience, like literally, and
Yeah.
social media is a human experience, like a social experience. But the thing is, it's kind of like multiplicity. One is on a grander scale, and this is kind of like a lesser version of
Exactly.
what that was. So,
Everybody settles for the lesser versions.
right,
Everybody's cool with the lesser versions. And you know what? I used to be. This is where I compare our older conversations to the new ones. I used to like not understand that and not be okay with it, right? But all that I've learned over the last 3 or 4 years is that it doesn't change my experience of it. Like I I've still gone about my way of experiencing life. And so while
everybody have their own life experience. Like I tell everybody, we
yeah,
all live on the same world, but inside of our heads, there's a billion different worlds.
absolutely. So while these people, they're cool with the pleasantries and the trivialities of like going online and reading about gossip every day and seeing the same selfies of your friends and all that. That's cool. That's like
Right, right.
that that's what they do. And I don't I don't need to I don't need to chastise them for doing it anymore, but I can't let it doesn't interfere with what I do.
But
Doesn't
I mean, just like we
doesn't
said,
interfere.
just like we talked about earlier, like I said, like these people are necessary evils because it shows you the spectrum
The
of the
spectrum.
journey of life. Like some
Yeah.
people just need to see gossip all day. That is very low on the spectrum. You can see yourself that you're higher on the spectrum of on the journey of life by seeing this lesser form. This
Absolutely, bro. And that's why it's like it's very interesting when you talk spirituality because you see if you take the titles away from you and I, if you say, okay, Sasha, you're not spiritual, you're not a God believer. Like you don't hurt my feelings by taking those titles away because it doesn't
changes
change.
your
It
experience.
doesn't change anything. Yeah, if you take the title like, hey, Judge, you're not an atheist. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt your feelings if somebody if I were to say, hey, bro, you actually have a lot more in common with me than you know when it comes to spirituality. Like it wouldn't be it wouldn't be like I was saying, hey, convert to Christianity
Right, like a
like
commercial.
yeah, I'm just saying like a lot of the things you say are more in tune with a spiritual knowledge than you know. That's coming from my perspective of like how I observe myself and how I've seen myself over the course of many years, et cetera, et cetera. So long story short, it's like the law of polarity is at play, and when it comes to dumbed down stuff and small time stuff, it almost has to happen, like you said, for the spectrum to
Yes,
exist.
yes,
It has to happen because without it, um, you may not even have the people who strive for more. If
right.
if if everybody exactly. Now, here's the crazy part. The crazy part is the spectrum is exponential. So,
True. It's like a universe. It's continuously expanding.
yes, so dumb today is smart
Right,
50 years ago.
right,
Like dumb today, like even the dumbest person today can hop on a phone and they can text message with their fingers. They can communicate with their fingers
right.
via text message and they can communicate with somebody across the globe. That is technically more conscious than somebody 50 years ago.
Yeah. This is the beauty what we're talking about right now. This is the beauty of the continuation of expanding, right? So my thing was I do not see a weak mind as bad because it depends on your ulterior motive. The person I was mentoring, right? She had a very fucking weak mind, very malleable. Anything you tell her, her parents told her she was dumb, she thought she was dumb. Her mind was so weak that I knew that she wasn't that educated, but I told her every single day, "Man, you are super smart. You're able to learn this type of thing. Do you want to learn this?" And she'd be like, "Yeah." And I kept building upon her weak mind, influencing her to learn more until she actually became like a solid, higher level than she was.
You positively sort of influenced her.
Yeah,
Yeah, you definitely influenced her, but you did it for the right
for
reasons.
no ulterior motives. Well, I had ulterior motive because, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to up her. I wanted to pull up on the spectrum. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. All right, now here's the crazy part. Well, it's not that crazy. So, you were on her level of the spectrum at one point in time.
Exactly.
Did anybody pull you up the spectrum?
That's the difference. I did it on my own.
Exactly. But what's to say she wouldn't have done it on her own?
Because honestly, there was no one who came into her. Because the thing was, she was always interested in learning. Not saying that she couldn't have reached there,
Oh yeah.
but she had no one to push. It's kind of like saying you may be a great pilot, but no one bought you a plane.
I see. Yeah. So you basically you enabled her truer self to come out.
Yes.
Perfect.
Because you probably could fly the fuck out of a plane, but if nobody says, "Hey, Sasha, this is a plane. Do you want to try to fly it?" You never know that you're good at flying that fucking plane. I provided her the plane. Put it like that.
Okay. Perfect. So
Because a person that's not educated, they have no clue where to start.
then the question becomes this with like the bigger population is are they a bunch of pilots who need a plane or do they need pilot lessons?
It's a good one.
Because pilot lessons are that's where you cross the line, like of or not cross the line, but that's where it gets dicey. Because if you buy somebody pilot lessons, you're insinuating that you see their future as a pilot.
Right.
So you're sort of encouraging the path for them. Whereas, so here's where I believe. I'll keep it simple. I gotta get better at this. Okay. So I feel as if you're leading the way and if you're trailblazing consciousness, it's inevitable, and you don't need to do a damn thing about it. And people will follow in your footsteps. And if you're in it for the right reason, and the right reasons, you don't even need like, and you're not concerned with notoriety because it's crazy. It's almost notoriety proof. You can't fall victim to like the same things that fame and other things like vanity and riches and power do because it takes time. So so let me give you an example. If everybody turned into the way that your brain works tomorrow, and you had a bunch of Jared's walking around, they all thought like you feel like you're the most powerful person on the planet tomorrow. If everybody started thinking like you and started, worshiping you and said, "Oh yeah, we all went to sleep and we woke up and you talked to us in our dreams, so we know you're God, Jared.
Right.
We know you're God and lead us. Everything you do and say, 100%, you're spot on." That would like it's hard to answer, but you would. If I asked you like, how would that make you feel? It would make you feel pretty powerful,
Of
right?
course, of course.
Okay. Now factor in latency to it. Let's say that everybody starts to think like you and behave like you and reason like you and make decisions like you, but it takes these people 2 years, it takes these people 5, it takes these people 10, it takes these people a week. You have no you have no reason. You have confidence, and you can, you can be confident in your ability to continue about, and the responsibility of something like that is crazy, and it weighs heavy on you. But it doesn't turn you into a power-hungry madman,
Right.
because you're able to assess the entirety of the spectrum, and your spectrum the whole time is continuing as well. And what does that do for you? It lets you know that you're not the peak of the spectrum. There's probably something beyond you that you're falling in line with.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So it just, all it really does is it makes you a guy who tells the other people, I went to the store.
Right.
And then they say, I went to the store too. Eventually.
Right.
And when you see that they acknowledge that part of the story, and they do it for the right reasons, then that gives you all the confidence and all the, honestly, like, love and compassion for that other person that you need to keep on going about it the right way. It's a fascinating thing, bro. It really is. And I'm not saying that I felt stuff like that, but it has been. All right, so we've all felt this sort of thing. I'll ask you, have you ever heard one of your friends or your family members come at you with a life situation that you've already been through and you already have come out of, and you're just going into it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How do you react to it? Do you come out and say, oh, I've been through this?
Well,
And try to give them advice from your perspective? I do. I've tried.
Advice. I don't.
Yes.
I never want to give them a path. My thing is, let's say like there's a forest, right? And they're going through the forest. I already been through the forest. I would tell them, hey, all the red berries, they're poisonous. The green berries are good. Um,
Would you tell them hey, I ate a lot of red berries? That's how I know.
right. And the thing is, I don't want to tell you, hey, turn left at the oak tree, turn right at the pine tree. I don't want to give you a path. I want to tell you what's good, what's bad, and I want you to find your own path. And that's what I did with the chick I was mentoring. Because the thing about when you tell someone what to do, they sometimes rebel because they're like, oh, this nigga can't tell me. This is a human ego. You can't get her to tell me what the fuck to do, you know? So all I do, I like to give advice. Hey, don't do this. This is useless. This is useful. But I want you to find your own path, because the thing about it is when you come out the other side of the forest, you may be able to give me advice on something I missed when I was in the forest.
Yeah. Something you say, hey, did you notice this part of the forest? Or, hey, I took a left turn here.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that gives that person its own human experience. So that person and I will be able to have a conversation about it. Because there's a chick right now. She keeps getting fucked by guys. And I'm trying to give them the perspective of guys, like, they don't give a fuck about you. They just want to fuck. But she still keeps falling into the same fucking trap. And what I started doing was I said, look, first I was like, bro, just stop fucking them in the first week. You know what I'm saying? Then eventually she'll fuck them in the first week. I said, look, bro, go through your human, because the thing about it is a person have to experience something before they can believe it for themselves. I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah, man, I've echoed that sentiment plenty of times, and I fully agree with it. Yes, once they do, and you know that they have, if they submit to it again, if they make the wrong decision and they do it again and again, at what point do you intervene, if at all, or do you let them keep?
I don't. I just don't. I learned that with this chick, because I fucked her probably like 2 years ago, and then we became like decent friends. We haven't fucked since then. She wants to fuck, you know what I'm saying? But it's just some people are just fucking hard headed, and she's gonna have to keep experiencing this, kind of like life, like we were talking about with the Nirvana and the Buddhism. If you keep doing the same fucked up shit.
Let me ask you a hard question then. What if you're nah, this is a tough question, man, because there's so many variables to it. But okay, that girl that keeps
what if she gets what if she passes on an STD because of that? What if she gets one and she passes it on to someone else? And let's say she has a child within 5 years and she passes it on to that child. And all you needed to do to prevent any of that from happening was you needed to override her thinking with the reasonable thinking.
I get.
Do you do it at that point, or do you not? Do you let her continue if you know that the inevitability is negative?
My thing is about that situation right there, because it's very tough to fight with. You know what I'm saying? Because I think about this type of stuff because she has a daughter and she could easily somehow transfer that to her daughter. You know, but the thing about me is that she's aware of these parameters. It's not as if not if she didn't think she could get an STD, I would be like, hey, if you keep fucking these guys, you can get an STD. She knows for a fact she could get an STD, and she still chooses to do it on her own. There's a point to where if you're knowledgeable of something and you chose to ignore it, no matter how many times somebody will tell you, like somebody could have told you 20 times, bro, weed is bad when you're inside your drug phase.
But dog, you know Burger King is unhealthy.
Oh, unhealthy as fuck, but I'm still probably go there like next month.
In the drive-through.
I still might go there next month. I know for a fact.
I feel you.
You said I'm 100% aware that shit is fucked up. But hey, today I was inside the motherfucking drive-through.
You're not doing it every day, and it doesn't prevent you from eating healthy. So
Oh yeah, I only drink water. I don't drink any sodas. I don't even need candy anymore. You know, I'm aware that I can indulge probably once a month or once every 2 months in something that's unhealthy. But some people,
you can't play Russian roulette every day.
nah, you can't. Eventually, gonna fucking kill yourself. You know, you only get like 6 shots. The thing about her. So what I do is I use the Socratic method, where you question somebody until they find their own logic and like, dude, that makes sense. So what happens is she was like, these guys out here are fucking liars. All they do is lie to me. And then I said, are you looking for a serious relationship? She says, no, I can't even see myself inside of a relationship. She was like, I don't even see myself being married. Then I said, so,
Think you're gonna attract?
right. So I was like, what does it even matter if they're lying to you if you're only in it for the pleasure and you have no long-term goals with these people?
Yeah, you're getting exactly what you want.
You're getting what the fuck you want, but you're complaining about it. How do you complain about something that you fucking want? You want these guys to fucking eventually leave. So why find that? Why would let's use God? Why would God send you the perfect guy that doesn't lie, that does want to stay with you, and eventually you're gonna get tired of him?
You're gonna break his heart.
Right.
Exactly. Absolutely. Hey, bro, I had revelatory moments where I thought about it deeply coming out of this relationship, and I know for a fact that in my late 20s, I feel like I was ready for a child, and now looking 9 years later, I look back and I'm like, there's no question about it. My ex-wife and I, we got together, we met, and we got married simply for the sake of both of us becoming parents and having a child. Because
On the same frequency.
it was an amazing result, and we love our daughter, and she's really like the glue to our family unit
Right.
at this point. Like, we're always gonna have that, and we get along great because of it. And regardless of all the other bullshit that happened between her and I, like, there's that unconditional sense of love. And my ex-wife hates when I talk like this, but I'm like, I still have love for you. Like,
Right.
I'm always gonna have love for you. You're not a baby mama. You're the mother of my child. So
Right.
there's a big difference between that. So yeah,
But-
I get exactly.
But on the God belief, like what I'm trying to stress to her, at that point in your life, you wanted a child and a family. Your wife, ex-wife at the time, wanted a child and family. So God allowed this person to enter your life. Why would God allow a person that wants a child and a family into somebody who doesn't want shit?
Absolutely. It's intelligent design in accordance with the level of intelligence that you want to experience.
Right.
It's you're that's the way I view freedom, man, is like the level of freedom that people experience is the level of freedom that, or the choice of which they choose to experience freedom is what they'll be met with. It's like only in the last 3 years have I had the opportunity to travel anywhere I want, go anywhere I want, and really just spend every day at my own pace. Minus, being a dad when my daughter's out of school and, dedicating time to her. But that's what I want to do too. So it's really throughout the entire day. I basically spend the entire day doing what I want.
Right.
Now, is doing what I want like a bunch of bullshit and sitting around on the couch and eating Doritos and ordering pizzas and playing video games? Nah, it used to be.
Right.
And in order to sustain that lifestyle when it used to be, I used to have to do work that I wasn't crazy about because I had to have a balance. So if like the laziness and the leisure and all that was so high and I was demanding so much of it that, you know, God would look at it and say, okay, you want to be able to play 3 hours of video games, watch 2 movies, buy all this junk food, smoke weed. You want to do all these things. All right, you're gonna have to work 40 hours a week and make this amount of money. Um, and now
Right.
and now it's like all I want to do is push my freedom further. I want to experience new experiences. I want to do new things. I want to go places I've never seen. I want to be open to the possibility of the unknown. So I'm not really putting a price tag on any of the things that I want to do. And my money has only gone up. And it's matching the openness and like the blank canvas of tomorrow that I have. I'm basically giving, again, back to the God talk. I'm giving the power to God to show me like, hey, I'm willing to I'm willing to broaden my horizons wherever you want them to go. I don't have a set a sequence of things that I want to do tomorrow. I might have goals. I might have personal goals and personal things that over time I want to get accomplished. But when it comes to tomorrow, man, it's a blank slate. You
That's
show
how it
me
should
what
be.
you want. I'm not gonna sit around. I'm not gonna play video games. I'm not gonna eat unhealthily. I'm not gonna do all the things that demanded all this pressure from like the world around me to facilitate.
Right. But the thing is, like, God allowed what you wanted with. So you became a slave to the trash of the 3 hour video game, 2 hour movie.
Yeah,
So you had to do a trash ass job to get trash ass results.
yeah,
So when you wanted to expand your mind to travel, God allowed you to put yourself out of position to have your own company to be able to sell items to put you in that position at that moment. It's like once you set your mind to I won't say I'm using God, but it could be universe or just a higher plane, whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? When you set your mind to something, the energy or the universe will put you in a position to allow you to do that. But as long as you keep that mindset, well, I just want to watch 3 hours of movies. Okay, go fucking
yeah.
40 fucking hour job. You do trash ass shit, you get a trash ass job.
Absolutely. And the crazy element to this is I've been feeling it from I would say 2013 on. I quit smoking, quit drinking, quit doing like just dumb shit around 2011, and kind of just changed my whole life around and the momentum from that point on. But then in like 2013 and 2014, I was still working in an office setting. I was making like 55,000 a year, but I wasn't crazy about it because my wife was at home. We just had a baby, so it was just one salary and it was very mediocre.
Right.
And I'm like, nah, man, I'm not about this anymore, and I need to change things up. But when you have a family, the security situation is a little different, and so I started dabbling with what I'm doing now, full time, part time, and I just started,
Right.
getting my foot in the pool. And then the difference is that I feel as if there was an override, like there was a hard override. This is why I asked you about like that girl and her situation. Like if you had a choice to where like you could start moving the pieces of her life a little bit without her, not necessarily with her knowledge, but you were doing it in a good way, no ulterior motives. But you were able to like set up the pilot lessons for her to become a pilot or something like that, or you were able to facilitate an environment that shifted her point of view and her perspective, and it was genuine and it was real, and you had the ability to do all that. Would you do it? Because what happened, and keep in mind, I don't think any human being could do this. I don't think any individual has the ability to put the wheels in motion the way that they were articulated, and it really is intelligent design. Because as I'm messing with this part time and I'm picking up on it, COVID hits,
That's the override.
and COVID is the override. COVID brings my job at the office to a complete halt. Says you're gonna work from home. 3 weeks later, I get a call from the people I'm working for saying we're gonna have to let you go. 2 weeks later, I'm doing this shit full time with unemployment at the time because of everybody losing their jobs. So now I'm like, oh, okay, I even got a buffer, a financial buffer to really launch
Right.
this on its own. So I do, and then after unemployment dies out, I'm like, oh, okay, now I gotta kick it up even more because I want to make more money than I was making when I had help and everything I was doing. I mean, during peak unemployment of COVID, when I was doing my business thing simultaneously, I was making about, this is conservative, 2,500 every 2 weeks. So
Good,
that
bro.
was like with, I would say maybe 20 hours of work a week. Now I'm 40 hours a week. And I'm pushing around 1,800 to 2,600 net every week.
Good, bro.
So this is off unemployment, and in my opinion, the limits are exponential, because what I've noticed from myself is that as the workload intensifies and gets more demanding, and as the potential for me to grow as a business presents itself, things in my life are starting to change like they did with the COVID situation. They're just a little less intense because I'm on board with it. Like I'm adapting.
Right.
I'm along for the ride now, and I'm on the roller coaster, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm front row, and I'm soaking in the sights, and I'm cool with it all. So before I was resistant to it, and it didn't matter. The override came.
I mean, let me tell you something, bro. Like, honestly, like I know again, once again, I mean, this is not 100% not going against free will, but I really do believe some things are destined for people. It
100%.
it comes, and you choose at the moment to where like you want to expand on it, and sometimes when you don't, even though you're destined for it, it's like God, universe, whatever sends in the override. Like I was always interested in stocks, right? I would read the news, whatever like that. I never really got into it. And then the universe, God, whatever you want to say, was like, I'm gonna send you a fucking mentor. My mentor came inside and he told me just start somewhere. I will be with you with the stock thing, whatever like that. Bam. Stocks. Like I was destined to be in stocks.
Yeah, man.
I was like it would like you said, like you did it part time. Like I was doing like research part time, never really taking it serious. But then eventually an override came inside. I was like, dude, this is your fucking destiny. And then the crazy part about it is when the override comes, you're like, man, shit, I could have been doing this 4 or 5 years ago.
Whole time.
But the thing was, you know who stopped you? Was fucking you.
You. That's
You.
or you were doing it, but you were doing it from like a consumer capacity, or
Right.
so man, I got like a 15,000 movie collection, man. I spent all out of pocket for it along my years of collecting. Never once did I ever go into it was always Best Buys or retail places like where I got stuff from. Never once did I go into like a thrift store or something like that to pick up a movie. And now I'm like, man, what have I missed out on this whole time? And it's literally my limited perspective of the situation. And hindsight's 2020. Like you could say, I was doing other good stuff, life and all that, but but it could be it. The override for me wasn't intense for me. It was an intense big picture situation, but like COVID wasn't crazy like negative for me. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't, but it took you to get to that mindset by having that freedom during COVID. COVID was an override for you,
Oh
huge.
yeah.
Like the thing with my wife. Like we met in 2016. Okay, I hit. Then I'll be like, man, I'm going to smash about 4 or 5 other chicks. Then I'll go back to her inside the summer. No, I would smash all during the regular winter and shit, and then I'll leave her during the summer and have fun. I did this for 4 years straight. Then eventually, one of the chicks I was messing with had one of her dudes put a gun in my face. That was my override.
Yeah, that was the override for sure.
So once I dealt with that situation, I was like, this is what God,
It rewired you. It rewired you.
right? It's what God or the universe had destined for me to marry this chick. You know what I'm saying? But the thing was, he showed me all the signs. I chose to ignore it.
Yeah. You chose to ignore it up to that point, but now here's the thing. Here's what experience can do for us, and this is a good topic to segue to man, whatever the next conversation we want to have is after this one. I'm sure it'll come up. But what experience does is, and experiences like those and the ones that I've gone through too, is it provides a formula for you to apply to experiences that you have moving forward. Now, there may be variability in them, but let's say you have that formula for your situation with your wife, right? That resulted in the gun being put to your head because you were just fucking around too much and you were making too many bad choices.
Right.
Like at the baseline, you take away the details of the situation, and you can say, if I make bad choice after bad choice, and I'm negligent of it, and I continue to make bad choices and bad choices, the metaphor of having a gun to your head will reappear. Like it'll be a different form.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. If you talk to your mom terribly um, for a year or two, and if you disrespect her continuously, if you have a terrible relationship, if you continue and continue and continue, you might be presented with a situation where your mom is um, like in a terrible uh, state of mental anguish, and you can't do anything for her.
Right.
And then that'll be the override for that situation. So there's like formulas to this, and that's why I keep going back to that question I asked you, because these formulas and these events, you're right, like people do have to experience stuff on their own to understand it. But how scary is that? Because what that's telling me is that right now, if you and I are on an evolved state of consciousness, and if my belief is true, then people are gonna have to go through several. I've gone through maybe 3 or 4 override moments in the last 10 years. There've been override moments for different reasons. One would be ego, one would be work, one would be faith, and the other one would be addiction, drug dependency. It was just marijuana, nothing crazy,
Right.
but just like smoking every day, and cigarettes. You could throw cigarettes in there. How many overrides do some people have? Like the lesser conscious people, because there's differences here. There's different variables. So if you keep people dumbed down and they don't grow consciously at all, do you still have the opportunity to move up on the spectrum? Like, yeah, right?
Yeah. Your own journey. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So our journeys aren't dependent on like there being. Um, Let me think of another way to put this. Remember when you said like without the dummies, you don't have the creation of the spectrum to where you have a fuller sense of it, right?
Right.
But now that you have the sense of the spectrum, like in order to keep the line like of the spectrum continuing and have new entries in the spectrum, you don't need them to. Do you need to pick them up, like the masses? Do the masses need to follow suit, or does that just happen with time?
When I speak of the masses, I look at it as like a what do you call? I'm not real good with the kitchen shit. The little fucking thing with all the holes in them,
Oh,
like a cipher or what the fuck
yeah,
ever.
sifter like
So,
for noodles and stuff.
yeah, yeah, that shit. You know, some people are strong enough noodles that they get held and pick up, and some people are water where they fall out to the bottom. You will never be able to pick up the full mass, and I'm aware of that. So there are some people that I actually tried to pick up, and it just fell through the fucking sifter, man. Like they're and honestly, like I'm not saying they're dumb. Like at that point of their life, what they wanted to do was what they fucking wanted to do, and there was almost nothing I could do about it. Not, I do not like force it. I love situations to be organic. This
I like that too.
the,
Here's the crazy thing. I've noticed that if you don't do anything about it and you allow certain behaviors to continue that are shared by the masses, then what you end up with are mass override events.
go deeper.
So you end up with shit like wars. You end up
True.
with shit like very daunting situation, like COVID. COVID, for example. Um, the way that I was treated by COVID was very well. Like I was not. I
Oh, me
didn't
too.
experience it terribly. Some people lost their entire families. Some people lost their livelihood. Some people are homeless. Some people have really been hit hard by COVID. They've lost their business. Now that's terrible on paper. And what I'm about to say is, if I said it to any of those people who lost like family members or businesses, it would be taken the wrong way. But I would say you weren't adequately prepared to sustain that override event. Like you were a passenger on the plane who knew that it was going to crash and you didn't do nothing.
Right.
So that's the the interesting part is like maybe the future of override events like that for the masses, maybe they affect people differently, but I'm jaded from the way that it's worked in the past. Like wars affect everybody, right?
Right.
Like we've never even been in one. So it's kind of crazy to think of that. Maybe we're war proof. I don't know. Maybe we're a generation that has elevated its consciousness so much that we can't allow for a war to be seen under our eye or under our watch. Um, but I'm often intrigued in like the major events that history views as negative. Like, are they preventable if everybody's on board with like the baseline of what's going on? I don't know. I'm probably just getting tired because like 1:15. I'm probably rambling at this point.
Oh yeah. We can pick it up another day. I'm following you, but yeah, I'm getting pretty.
Override events are interesting to me. Like that terminology, even that we just coined like here in the last hour, is kind of crazy to me because it is an override event that says like in the individual life, if you got your shit like fucked up, all the way fucked up, something will come along and it'll steer you in the right direction. It'll jolt you to a certain degree. It'll rewire. It'll re-energize you, and all of a sudden you'll have to like swallow that humble or take that slice of humble pie, and you'll be like, yeah, I was going about shit wrong.
Right, like one of the quotes I said. It's almost impossible to have 100% negative in a situation. Let's say like Miss Martha, she gets fucking shot at the local mall and she dies. Like next thing you know, the lady who was she let's say like she was like the major secretary and she had an assistant secretary. Now the person under her becomes a secretary. There is positivity within Martha's death. It may not be positive to Martha and her kids. Like kids may get a fucking wheel. I don't fucking know. But any situation, if you choose to see the possibility, the positivity inside of it, it's there. Like COVID, you could have chose to see, man, I just fucking lost my job, but instead you found a way to monopolize to make more money off of it.
I have the freedom to do what I want. Yeah.
Exactly, man. Like just like evolution, man. If you don't adapt, you will get swallowed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Man. So then. Yeah. So I mean, essentially, like, oh man,
Brains are shutting down, man.
but it's a bunch of different. Yeah, I'll just dumb it down. It's a bunch of different variables. It's like I don't want people to get swallowed.
No. That would be. I mean, any. I can't say every president, but there are presidents who wish that every single one of their soldiers will come home. But in the eventuality of war, there will be casualties. There will be
Yeah,
death.
it's like I know that the next like override event, if there is one, like the very next one, everybody who's unprepared for it is like seriously affected by it. But like you said, that doesn't mean that it's all a negative outcome from it. But when it's experienced and you see like the suffering from it around you, then it's very difficult to like. It's hard to say that 3 million people in the past like 2 years dying from COVID is like not a terrible thing, but it's not.
All negative.
Yeah, it's not all negative.
Because think about the consciousness. This is sounds silly as shit, but think about the consciousness of a dinosaur. You know, seeing its family members get fucking blown to pieces and dying. But out of that negativity of a dinosaur being erased, humans came.
Right, exactly. So the long term is like what's
More important, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
So we may get wiped out, and we're gonna see the fucking negativity of it. But the future AIs, they gonna be like, dude, if they didn't get, because honestly, do you really think we could coexist with dinosaurs? No, we won't be able to drive to Walmart. The motherfuckers be eating us up left and right at the fucking entrance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in order for us to exist, we had to have a quote unquote negative situation.
Yes. It wasn't negative for us, but it was negative for the species that we replaced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
I'll dwell on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
That was good.
That was a good 3 hours.
3 hours and
Crazy. We went all over the place tonight.
right, but it all intertwined.
Oh man, and just wait until our mind turns off and is allowed to sort of
Digest it.
everything. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy. Hey, I'm gonna catch up with you like in a day or so, I'm sure. But if you watch Interstellar again, let me know what you think of it, man. 'Cause, I kind of want to watch that movie again, but there's a lot of other stuff I want to watch too.
Okay, cool, bro. And this one goes into the books because I had my
Into the books, the canon.
I had my my iPad on record, so it cut all the audio.
Shit, the whole time I liked it too, man, because I didn't know, and so like.
And I didn't care. Like I had to look at my iPad and be like, oh, that motherfucker recording, you know?
3 hours and 11 minutes. I love it, man.
Yeah. So this is so none of our conversations can go. If something was to happen to me, I have it all within the file. My wife can send you all of our conversations.
That's dope. And you know, the
Oh yeah,
onto other people. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
yeah. Oh, all right, bro.
All right, man. Hey, take it easy. Have a good night.
All
I'll
right.
catch up with you. And still, like March, I'm gonna try to do Lake Charles at some point. So I'm probably swing through your neck of the woods for like maybe 3-4 hours at some point. I would hope.
All right, and anytime you want me to go do like a podcast, I'll take a quick flight to Fort Worth anytime in Dallas, whenever.
DFW. All right, all right. We slowed down. We've only done 2 since the new year because I had COVID like a month and a half ago. It was light, but his
Yeah.
wife had COVID too, so we just got delayed by all that shit. But we're getting back into the swing of things.
It doesn't even have to be the 3. It could just be you and us chopping it up just for one.
That's true.
One
We just press
podcast.
record. We can just press record with the mics in front of us and see what happens.
I mean, every single one of our conversations is a fucking substance.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast.
Podcast season, more like it. Shit.
Right. It's just so fucking organic.
But it is energizing at the same time. Like I feel like I could talk for like another 10 hours if I really wanted to, and if my daughter could miss school tomorrow.
Right.
She can. I gotta wake up in 5 hours. All right, bro.
All right, bro. Great talk.
Good night, man. It's always a pleasure.
All right.